Hello. Hey,
Good
Josh.
morning, everybody. Well, I guess it's morning for me.
Yeah, it's kind of morning, something like that. Somewhere around there.
And apparently, my dog wants to be part of the podcast today, too.
It happens. It's
Yeah,
they're like you do this all the time and you ignore me, so now you don't get a choice.
exactly.
That's how
Yeah.
that works. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving there?
Oh, it was good, but mine was stressful. Like I made the turkey and then I made a prime rib, and my friends kept talking me into making more food, and like I was,
Talking you
and
into
I don't,
making more food? How does that work?
yeah. Uh, it was really easy. It was like, hey, can you please do this?
Can
Like I really want some prime rib. Uh,
can you make some potatoes with the prime rib too?
yeah.
Oh yeah. What about some green beans? You got any
Can
of
you
that
just make
sweet
yeah?
potato casserole? You got?
Can you just make the whole meal? Like and we can just come over and eat it, and we don't have to worry about anything.
Oh, I thought it was like the day of. They're like, hey, it's
It
nice you
it
made the
was a few days.
turkey.
It was like a week before. Well, I knew I was making the turkey,
Yeah,
and then it was like, oh well, well, we're gonna have more people, and then it's like, oh well, you should invite your parents and your brother, and then that was like seven more people.
nice,
So
nice.
yeah.
So you had to go get another turkey.
No, I went and got a prime rib instead, which is a
Fine.
little bit more expensive than the
Just
turkey, but
just a scotch. You know.
yeah. But no, we had a good time. We played some games afterwards. Like, yeah, dude, good food, good people.
Who did
Can't complain.
desserts?
You? Huh?
Who did desserts? Who made the
Oh,
desserts?
my dad did. He went to there's this pumpkin farm that has a bakery.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's like 20, 30 minutes away, and he went and bought like four or five pies, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, it
So
was
so so nobody did the desserts. What you're saying? It's not that they
yeah.
were they
Yeah.
were. Well,
Well, I
hey.
mean, my dad does what he always does, like he throws money at the problem, and
Hmm.
and then he's like, okay, everybody love me now. Like I paid for this.
That,
So
that seems appropriate. I mean,
yeah,
hey, at least hopefully the pies were good. There were the good pies, and not Walmart pies.
they they were tasty pies. Yeah.
No, no,
They
no shade on Walmart there. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Walmart does a great job. Their bakery is
I mean, hey,
on point.
you can't blame the bakers, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you hear that, Walmart?
no, mine was good. We did a turkey, did mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, um, like a green bean thing. The normal stuff, gravy, stuffing.
Nice.
It was really good. It was nice, nice. And then had the same thing on Friday, the day after, because
Yeah,
got
I did the
leftovers, man.
same.
That's the way it works. That's you're eating turkey for the next week.
Yeah. Did you have the kids over? Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I
the
had the kids
whole
on
family?
Friday. Yeah, the kids
Well,
came over on
good.
Friday, and we did that, and then went bowling Friday night. It was a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
had fun, and then then the day after Christmas starts. That's how that works, isn't it?
I,
Day after
dude,
Thanksgiving.
it's interesting that you say that because I saw people putting up their Christmas lights and doing all this stuff, and then my roommate asked me if she could decorate for Christmas, and I was like, yeah, you do you. But I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I like this idea that like it's the day after Thanksgiving, and then everybody's like on to Christmas. It's just
Oh yeah.
uh, it's kind of fascinating to me. I don't understand it. I don't know. I don't know
It's
what it is,
well,
but
they got
but
one
it, it
holiday
light it
done.
lights it lights some people up. So good for them.
It does. No, I mean, it's there's a movie we watched. We've been watching Christmas movies since the day after Halloween, but
Of course,
because there's not really that many Thanksgiving movies. You don't really.
that's true.
So, but there was a Christmas movie about a guy that still believed in Santa, and Christmas was and he's whatever. And it was it actually had a really good point behind it of basically, for some people it's the time of the year that, it makes them happy and makes them, it does whatever it does for them. So why are you going to fault somebody like that? Like, let them have it. Let
Yeah,
you know
I agree with that. I just wish people could find a way to be happy or content
be
the other
nice to
10
each
months.
other
Yeah,
the other 11 months of the year.
right. Yeah.
Come on, I just got 1 month and I got to do it. I don't need 11 others.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's just jump into what we got going on here. So last week we started on section 8. We got through the first sentence, kind of, sort of. But I mean, it's probably the one of the most powerful sentences, and it was kind of the whole reason that they made the Constitution that we have now is that first sentence in Section 8, and that's a way to essentially raise money for the U.S. because we had no way to raise money to pay our debts. It was kind of based on the states. If they wanted to pay the federal government, they could, and then with the new Constitution, we got the ability to generate revenue with the federal government. So I know that we went into quite a bit of detail. Well, I know we had a short. We were only on for like 2 hours last week, but which is obviously short. Um, but so we kind of came to the conclusion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, that we need a way, and we talked about the conservative, the libertarian, the progressive. We went through those, and the last note I have is limit federal ability to tax the individual, to have different ways to collect taxes, whether it's through the state or through other types of sales tax rather than directly on income. So I know that we said we were going to kind of mull it over and then talk a little bit about it this week. I don't know if we're going to spend the whole time on that one. We need to kind of sort of move on. But what is your? Because I know in the conservative, Constitution, they gave them the United States Congress shall not lay. They gave specific. They actually outlined specific ways that Congress could not tax, that it would be reserved to the states, and that's capitation, tax on sales, or tax on real or personal property. That only the states could do that. That's what the conservative Constitution says. And then with the libertarian, they didn't say anything about how they collected the debts. They just said that general welfare should not be construed to refer to a specific welfare of any particular group or individual, which was another weird one, because then if it can't be specific to any group or individual, I mean, you could lend that to believe that you could get rid of any type of subsidy for anyone as long as it only goes to a certain group. So there goes your farm subsidies, there goes your electric subsidy, your what is it, your green green building, or any type of subsidies for any specific group of people that may be having some sort of hardship. Then it only goes to a general welfare, which would leave open, like we said, the ability to do a UBI, because that is one of the only ways that you would do general welfare would be a UBI or Medicare for all, or health care for all, because it would have to benefit everybody, not just a specific group. So, and then of course the progressive Constitution didn't do anything. They essentially left it the same. So, and then we got into some conversation about wording, talking about, duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform, and duties, imposts are essentially tariffs. They have to be uniform throughout the United States. Meaning anything coming into the United States or, between states, it has to be uniform across the board. It can't favor one state or another. But yeah, thoughts? Did you, have any, amazing light bulb moments over the week about this?
Uh, I don't know if it's a light bulb moment, but I don't think I was really thinking about how to stop the federal government from taxing the individual. For me, it was more about limiting power, um,
Okay.
where um, because now the way we have things set up now is the federal government they collect the majority of the taxes,
Yeah.
and then everybody else has to beg um, for what they want or what they need. And I don't, they there's this saying in the military that you use the chain of command, but you solve problems at the lowest possible level, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Because you just create more. What do you call it? Bureaucratic mess or administrative overhead. The higher you go.
Yeah, if I have a problem with a guy that I'm working with, like the idea, just think drilling it down to like a base case, right? Where and like I'm irritated with him, or I don't like the way he's doing things, or whatever it ends up being, and and then I don't talk to him about it. I don't try to work it out with him, and then I go to his supervisor, I go to my supervisor, or I take it somewhere farther up the chain. I mean, what it like, and I do it without trying to work it out with him. I've just created more work, more of a mess for more people to deal with when the two of us, hopefully as sane, rational adults, could have just talked it out and come up with a solution.
Well,
And
okay.
um,
So I just need to point out real quick the fact that you made mention there of sane, rational adults.
right,
I want to make sure that we keep that in context of you have to have sane, rational adults.
yeah,
And
and
just real quick, just optimistic black hole. Welcome. Hopefully, it sounds like you're traveling, so safe travels. But
yeah, good
yeah,
to have you
no,
here.
I think that what you're saying, it does have some, it is good to try to resolve it at that level. But when we're talking about funding, when we're talking about money, money is always going to be kind of a thing. And the anytime you consolidate, like, yes, you want to take care of it at the lowest level. What does that look like? And how do you make it to where, like, if you look at it, you have essentially two places that are going to generate revenue to that are supposed to have the people in mind, that are supposed to take care of the people, and that is going to be at the state level and um, at the federal level. I mean, you can go down to, if you really wanted to, you could go down to county and then city, or even local. How, because you don't always have city governments. You'll have, councils, town councils, and things like that,
Hmm.
and they all generate revenue all the way up. Towns generate revenue, whether it's through taxes or fees on utilities that are provided, or something of that nature. Cities, they do the same way, whether it's city taxes, property taxes, or however they're generating the revenue, and then state or county, and then state, and then federal. So do you want to, do we push it down further, or are there some things that can only be handled, and that's kind of where the Articles of Confederation failed, things that need to be handled at the highest level.
Yeah,
How do you make sure that, like in the libertarian constitution said, we want to make sure it's for everybody. Like when you're at the federal level, when you're at that high of a level, it shouldn't be favorites. Like each state is trying to jockey for their own position, right? Each state's trying to get more for their state. Each state's trying to, like, oh well, I need to fund the wildlife preserve for whatever in my state that, and I want, $500,000 for that wildlife preserve, that no other state is like, well, how am I benefiting from you getting $500,000 for your wildlife preserve? Well, then I should, we should all get $500,000 for our wildlife preserves. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, or whatever it ends up being. Yeah.
how do you, where does it go from the federal level to where it's general welfare, like to where what does that, like, okay, if something happens at the federal level, it needs to happen for all across the states. But then you have, say you have droughts, and the farm, we have really bad droughts, and then, the farms aren't producing the crops that they need. Okay, well, does the federal government step in for the sake of the country and for the overall, because it's the general welfare? If we have a massive, food shortage, or if we have, a massive amount of, I don't know what the words I'm looking for, a massive amount of poverty because, there's no food. So the farmers aren't producing. So they're not making any money. So you have, people that are starving there, but also the food that they're using to provide for other people across the country. Does the federal government step in, or do they say, hey, states, figure it out? You have I mean, we've seen this recently with the hurricanes that have come up
Yeah,
through,
with FEMA. I was thinking
you
the same
know,
thing.
through the middle of, the middle of the eastern part of the country, through Tennessee, North Carolina, and I believe to some extent South Carolina, the flooding and the destruction that happened in the mountains, where you wouldn't think, oh, a hurricane's, destroying parts of the mountain, but there was a massive loss. So does the federal government say, hey, state, you need to get off your rear and take care of your own? Or does the state say, hey, all that money we're giving the federal government, we need a little kickback right now because we're hurting? Like, where does that,
Yeah.
how do you separate what is the general welfare of everybody versus, hey, well,
Yeah.
these people are in need and it's going to help our country overall?
How do you balance that scale?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question. Mm, I don't. I'm not. I don't know.
And
Like, it's
well,
it's a lot.
and real quick, just and we can look at the way that, the money that's contributed to the government, as far as taxes and the states that they come from. California and New York contribute a massive amount of money to the federal government, and then you take someone like Mississippi, Alabama. If anything, I think that they take more than they get, than
Mm,
they give. So, how do you make sure, because right now we're already doing that. We're taking from the states that have, a massive GDP, or make a lot of money, taking their taxes that they're doing, and then we give it to the other states so that they can, well, I mean, we hope that they can do better. I don't, that's up for discussion as far as whether they do or not. Um, but, where does, so how does that look from that perspective, as far as, okay, well, if we're generating revenue, where does all that revenue go to, and where is it, and how's it distributed? It's a tough one.
yeah, that it is. Off the top of my head, um, I go back to technology. I and trying to rely on it
So,
um, to handle most of those problems. And I know that's
yeah.
not the whole answer.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a part, that's part of the solution to a problem, or a way to find a solution. But so if you take right now what we have, the Congress has the ability to, um, collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Okay, so there's no regulation on that whatsoever. They have the ability to tax. That's what Congress has the ability to do. And I believe was it the 17th? What was the amendment that, the
It's either
IRS?
the 17th or the 19th.
Um, Let's see if I can do. Usually they have something in here about that. The amendments. Let's take a look. See what we got. So I mean, those are the
It
let's
was
see,
the
seventh,
16th Amendment.
16th income tax. Congress shall have the payer to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. So that gives them the blanket authority to tax income, period, across the board, with no, literally with no regulation, without apportionment among the several states, without regard to any census or enumeration. So they have the ability to tax income, period. So is that, and there wasn't anything here that was saying that they couldn't, because it says Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. Like there wasn't anything that said that they couldn't. So we're talking about income tax. So whether it's a business income, and we all know businesses do their best to show that they don't have any income so that they don't have to pay taxes on it. And there's, they have teams of lawyers and accountants and whatever to, make sure that they don't pay taxes. But so if we're talking from the
Yeah.
federal government, what's the,
Well, yeah. I mean, my dad is a very rich man because he keeps other rich people more rich.
yeah.
His whole entire job is to keep them from paying more taxes.
So he's an accountant, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody, you know, that's
No.
why they create
Screw
these
that dude.
things, for people to keep their money, right? Um,
Yeah. On its face. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we're going to have to come back to this because I think that this is something that obviously we're going to have to look at in a little more detail. And I think that there's also, even from some of the other three constitutions that we're looking at, um, there's some tie-ins with other parts that they've created that kind of go into this a little bit, as far as the ability to generate revenue and then the ability to spend the money as well. So I say we're gonna table that one for right now, just for the sake of being able to get through this stuff. Um, and then we'll go to the next one, because I think that there's going to be some of these that we're going to be like, okay, yeah, no big deal. Like, Congress has the ability to borrow money on the credit of the U.S. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. Congress should have the ability to borrow money on credit.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't believe. Um, let's get down here to
I
borrow
mean,
money.
other than what we were talking about earlier, where they should have
Limited.
some kind of limit on that power as far
So,
as how much debt they can accrue.
well, no, and exactly, and that's what some of these do. So the conservative Constitution, to borrow money on the credit of the United States, provided that the public debt of the U.S. shall not exceed 50% of the GDP as defined by law, except during a declared war or emergency as provided herein. So essentially, they're saying you can't borrow more than 50% of the GDP unless there is a war or emergency,
Mm.
which,
But
I mean, is okay. But then you go into the question, well, what is a war or emergency?
yeah,
So,
and they're fighting about that stuff right now. Like
correct.
they talking about how immigration is some kind of national emergency right now, which maybe it is,
Yes.
maybe it's not. I don't know. And who decides when you cross that threshold and when you get there and who gets to claim that? That's another interesting.
Yes.
And again, you think that we could be rational, sane adults about all this, but doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of that left.
I
Um,
mean, you know,
at least in the current conversation.
a- anybody can make a mountain out of a molehill. I mean,
Yeah.
that's. I mean, there's a reason why that's a saying. So you can create an emergency for anything. I mean, it's obviously not an emergency that, we have a lot of people, that are homeless or living in poverty or can't eat or whatever, that isn't an emergency, but
I agree.
it's an eye of the beholder of, what's going on. Um, I mean, if you really wanted to, what we had the war on drugs for the past how many years? I mean, as long as I've been
Since the
alive, I'm
late
pretty sure, like
'80s, so
40 plus years now.
yeah,
I
almost.
mean,
I would say getting close to 40 years.
is that not a declared war?
I, I think we won that one, didn't we?
No, no, not at all. Um, okay, so that's what the conservative constitution says. What they're recommending is they can borrow, but it shouldn't exceed 50% of GDP, unless war or emergency. So let's see. Where is section 8? So this is the libertarian. Didn't change anything. Borrow money on the credit of the United States. Period. And then if we go to the progressive, borrow money on the credit of the United States. So it doesn't change. It doesn't change in the other two. So the question is, you know, do you limit it? I know that the libertarian constitution, and it's not here yet, but in the next, or in, I think it was section 11 of the libertarian one, they limit spending and all that, creating, they have a balanced budget, section for that type of stuff. So that is going to limit that particular part about being able to borrow money.
Hmm.
But the conservative constitution, if you look at it, they did not do a balanced budget amendment. So they just said, "Hey, you can't borrow more than 50% of the GDP." So borrow money. Do we put a limiter there? Do we do a balanced budget section? Like, what are we looking at?
Mm, maybe we hold off and wait till we see what the libertarian thing says about the balanced budget. I'm curious about that.
Oh, it's a
I
good one. It's a good
Yeah.
one. Okay,
Uh,
so the next one, to regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So that is what our Constitution says. I have a feeling that, yeah. I mean, if you look at the conservative Constitution, I just want to point this out real quick. Congress shall have the power. Section 9. If you look at this, taxes, borrow money, spend money, no appropriation of money or provision for public benefit shall be conditioned, to determine the method for calculating gross domestic product, to create a central bank, and to declare a state of emergency.
so Congress has to declare the state of emergency,
Uh,
not
Upon the request from the president, with a vote of three
okay.
fifths of the member of each house, declares a state of emergency. That is what the
I,
Congress. That is what the conservative Constitution says. But I just want to point out, like, if you look at the powers of Congress, and you look at this list: borrow money, regulate commerce, establish uniform rule of naturalization, coin money, provide punishment for counterfeiting, establish post office. Like, I mean, there's like what, 15 things here, right? Make rules for government, maintain a navy. If you look at the conservative Constitution, oh, they put it down here. Oh, so the conservative Constitution, Section 9 is all about money. Section 10 is about the Board of Treasury. Section 11 is a continuation of Section 8. And then 12. Okay, Section 12 looks like the Bill of Rights.
Hmm.
And then 13 is things that the states cannot do. So the conservative constitution has, this is all kinds of back and forth and everything, but they essentially created two sections about the ability to collect and spend money. Do you want to go through this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Because I mean this is basically the first they took that first one sentence and they made two sections out of it. So to borrow money on the credit of the United States, provided that we already did that, 50% of the GDP. To spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local, interest of the United States. And this is something we talked about in the libertarian one. So they're doing the same thing, right? Wouldn't this to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local interest of the United States? Wouldn't that take away? That would take away a lot of the appropriations or a lot of the subsidies for different things on different states. Would it?
Yeah.
Would it not?
I think in theory it does. The problem I always go back to with that is that like anybody can make an argument that like go back to the mountain out of a molehill
Yeah.
metaphor. Anybody can make a moral argument that a local problem can turn into a national one, or you know that that things are going to ripple out or steamroll or whatever you want to call it to in order to loophole that statement.
I don't disagree, but the fact that they would have to make that because there's an what is it? There is a body or a person that goes through the spending bills and actually removes things that are not constitutionally um, that the Congress does not have the ability to spend money on. There's an actual job. This person does that job.
Hmm.
And they had that problem with this last budget bill that you tried to pass. She went through and she essentially line itemed a bunch of things because it wasn't constitutional for Congress um, to allocate money or to say that they were going to do that. So I think that this is where we get a lot into interpretations. But like you were saying, anybody can make a case for it. But in my opinion, let them make the case. If they got to sit there and argue in front of 400 or 1,000 people and say, "Hey, my issue, my issue in my because this originates in the House." So you're talking if we have 1,000 people that are representing the people, um, and they say, "Hey, my issue that is local to me, I need to put we need to put money towards this," and you have to convince 1,000 people that hey, this could affect you too.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I'm thinking about edge cases. I like, and
Yeah.
stuff that's happened over the years, and I like, I don't think there's anything that you can write into a constitution that's going to prevent prevent people from trying to game the system
Oh
at
no.
the end of the day. And I think this is good. It's a good start. It definitely takes away the power. Like when you talk about the emergency powers of the president, if they take that away from one person, and put it in the hands of a body of representatives that are supposed to represent the people, I think that's a lot better letting one individual decide what's an emergency and what's not.
Yeah.
I think in my head I'm thinking that I think that has to be good enough. And then if 400 people get together and decide that they want to do something shady, um,
I mean, that's,
hopefully,
you know, bad on, shame on us, right? For electing 400
yeah,
people.
yeah,
That's, I mean, and that's kind of the purpose of having, those representatives is you try to weed out, the bad apples. I mean, recently you look at it and, in a two-party system, it's hard to do that because essentially you get further and further away from, people working together.
yeah,
But, we hope to take care of that, implementing something that is going to be better for, electing represent like if we base everything on the way stuff is now,
yeah,
we're going to have a hard time solving all the problems. But if we make tweaks and we look at, okay, well, this is hopefully going to solve this overarching problem of all of these, quote unquote corrupt people, or people, out for their own benefit versus the benefit of the majority or the benefit of the country as a whole. I think that is, at some point we have to again rely on like what was it, Madison, about civic virtue,
Adams,
Adams, and to the certain point we're going to hope that we have the ability to get the right people in to where they're
yeah,
going to be looking at it for the benefit of, of the majority of
everyone,
the people
yeah,
versus, the select few that are giving them whatever, however they're being bought. So I think
yeah,
that, and
yeah,
this
and
is,
I agree with you. I think we solve problems there rather than try to close every single loophole.
yeah, and I think I like the idea of putting a little bit of putting some sort of guardrail on the ability to just spend money like it's, like we have a
Like
ton
it's
of it.
going out of style.
Yeah. Um, and I think it should be in some way, shape, or form tied to how much, you're saying they're tying it to GDP. I mean, in my opinion, just because you have a high GDP, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an economist. I don't know exactly how they determine GDP. Do you, Josh, know how they determine GDP?
Not not specifically. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different metrics that they use.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm wondering if even tying, like this is the ability to borrow. So you're borrowing money on the quote unquote theoretical amount that your, essentially your business or your country has the ability to produce, right? Your
right.
GDP. So say we have the ability to produce $5 trillion worth of whatever, of our gross, our domestic product. We have the ability to produce $5 trillion. So they're saying you can't borrow more than 2.5 trillion.
Yeah.
That's not saying that you can't spend more than 2.5 trillion. They're just saying you can't borrow more than 2.5 trillion on top of whatever revenue you're already generating.
Yeah.
So kind of my question, like tying it to GDP, kind of sort of makes sense. But I'm wondering if we look at it, because if you take a normal person and they go out and they try to get a loan, obviously the bank is looking at, well, what's your GDP? Like how much
Yeah.
domestic product can you produce? That's what they're looking at, right? No, they're not. They're looking at, well, what is your income? And they're going to, or if you don't have an income, they're going to look at asset. What asset are you going to put up against this? And essentially, what the GDP is, well, this is how much our country's worth, right? Or we're worth 5 trillion a year. That's
Yeah.
that's what our GDP is our net worth essentially. to an extent. Not
Yeah.
really, because I don't even know that is GDP even tied to like physical assets.
I think it's just wealth, but wealth and resources like are they're all kind of tied together at this point. Like
Yeah,
because when you talk about you know that there's 150 trillion dollars of wealth in the sitting in this country, that includes like everything from land to stocks to you know
yeah,
and what are stocks really worth at the end of the day? That's all speculative, and it's really only the worth that we all give it. You know,
yeah,
we say that hey, this is worth you know this stock is worth $5 a share because someone is willing to pay $5 a share for it.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
you go intrinsic value in anything, creating scarcity. Oh, well, there's only 5 of these that were ever made, so it's worth more. Well, it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, you know.
Yeah,
The
I mean, you can go steal a $10 million painting out of the Louvre, and if nobody's willing to buy it, it's not worth anything.
yeah,
And you just did all that work and took all that risk for nothing.
well, for $10 million that you're not going to get,
Right.
and that's kind of the thing, if nobody's willing to pay any money for it, doesn't then, you know, value is
But
in the eye of
but
the beholder, I guess.
yeah, I get exactly what you were saying, and as you like, I was thinking the exact same thing as you were kind of teasing it out. Um, so the I just asked how is GDP calculated, and chat is saying it's based on consumption, investment, government purchases, and net exports. Um,
Okay.
there's also an alternative approach called the income approach.
Yeah.
Um, add up all the income generated in producing goods and services. So wages, rents, interest, business profits, and adjustments for depreciation. Um, and then there's also a production value added approach. Add the value added at each stage of production. Said it's saying that all three methods should produce the same number. If not, someone fat fingered a spreadsheet at the Bureau of Economic Analysis.
Nice. Well, I would say we would go look and see what our latest GDP report is, but for the first time in I don't know how many years, it was not released in the United States this past.
What?
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Uh,
And there was also another report that wasn't
there's
released either.
people in our government that are trying to hide things from us.
It's really weird, government of transparency, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so so the fact that we don't know what our current GDP is because it we weren't given that information this quarter or whatever it was. Um, Tying it to GDP, I kind of the fact that you can almost make those numbers up, right? Kind of what it feels like you were saying.
Well, yeah. Well, like, uh, I had chat break it down for me. It says, okay, households buy $400 billion in goods, $600 billion in services. Okay, well, how do we figure that out? Like, and why can't somebody just change a five to a six on a spreadsheet somewhere?
Yeah, I
You know?
bought $600 million in goods, or I exported
Yeah.
$600 million in goods this year myself. So why can't I have this $1 million loan? I don't understand. No, but so if we tie it to GDP to me, don't get me wrong, there's a way to measure and there's economists that are doing it, but when it gets down to it, anybody can change a one to a zero or a zero to a one or whatever. I'm thinking that if me personally, because most of the time, whenever you go out to get a loan, the average person, what is the first thing that they look at?
Debt to income ratio.
Debt to income, right? Or your income in general.
Right.
Your income is a big part of it. So if we tie the ability to borrow money based on the amount of income or the amount of revenue that is generated by Congress. So this does multiple things. One, Congress is going to try to do what? Generate
Increased revenue.
increase revenue. Okay, and how do you increase revenue?
You generate taxes.
Increase taxes. All right. So if you tie the amount of money that can be borrowed to the income of the government, or the income, the revenue of, I think that that is more of a, because your GDP, you can, like you said, I got, you know, we have, what was our last GDP? What was the last GDP of US GDP? The nominal US GDP is approximately $30 trillion, right? As of 2025. Okay, so the Federal Reserve, they're putting us right around 30 trillion. Okay, so if we do, let's uh, revenue generated by U.S. The U.S. generated approximately 5.23 trillion in federal revenue in fiscal year 2025. Okay, so if we look at that, so income taxes 217 billion. So okay, so we're sitting at 5 trillion, right? So I say we limit, because if you did 50% of GDP, then that means that you could borrow $15 trillion.
Right.
What's our
I'm.
current? I don't know what our debt
I
is.
think it's like 30. I think it's might be pushing 40 trillion.
40 trillion. So we're well
Yeah.
over our GDP. Well over. So that was the revenue. What's our latest spending?
Yeah.
Seven
38
trillion.
trillion is the current national debt.
What is it?
38 trillion.
38 trillion. Okay, so for fiscal year, U.S. government spending is projected to be $7 trillion. I think that while the deficit is estimated around 1.7, yeah, 7 trillion with five. So yeah, so I don't think I say we limit, like, because if you put someone, you're saying that the government should be able to have a deficit. Actually, that's not even what they're saying. Okay, yeah, they are. The public debt should not exceed 50% of GDP. Um, so I think that, so they're saying that if at $15 trillion we can't borrow any more money.
Yeah.
So we would not be able to borrow any money. So we would be relegated to spending only what we generate in revenue until the debt goes back, until the debt goes back down.
Yeah. Um, I'm thinking about this in terms of business, right? Or growing your worth, even if it's personal worth, right? Like if I go to get a loan, I'm assuming that I'm going to, and whatever
You
the
have to be able to
interest
pay
rate
it
on that.
back.
Yeah, well, not only that, but the idea being that I'm going to use that to grow my worth in some way. That I'm
Correct.
going to outstrip that I'm going to outstrip that I'm going to take that money and if from a business perspective, and I'm going to outstrip that interest um,
Correct.
by 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 increasing my wealth and resources by however I end up using that money, and that it's going to outgrow the interest that I would have to pay. We don't. we don't do that the with the national debt. It's just like, oh, hey, we need more money, so
Yeah.
to pay for all these services, or all this this government stuff that we're doing, and nobody has any
Well,
thought for the idea of, okay, well, hey, is this actually going to increase the over? I mean, they think they do. It's speculative. They hope that we do, but then when it doesn't, they don't get rid of the program. They don't say, okay, hey, this didn't work. Let's try something else. Like what a business would have to do, or what a person would have to do when they have to file bankruptcy, or whatever it ends up, whatever it ends up being. Um, that okay, now I have to come up with some other idea of how do I fix this, or how do I make this better. And there's no consequences for just continuing to grow the national debt, and especially in government, they just double down. Oh, well, we've had this program in place for 5 years, we can't get rid of it. um,
so so this is so if you talk about our so there's three different types of spending. There's mandatory, discretionary, and supplemental. Mandatory spending, direct spending, is mandated by existing laws. This type of spending includes funding for entitlement programs like Medicaid, Social Security, other payments to people, businesses, state, local governments. Um, Due to authorization, funding for these programs must be allocated each year, hence the term mandatory. So our mandatory spending is $4.37 trillion, right around there. Our revenue generation is 5.23 trillion. So our mandatory spending is under our revenue generation.
mhm.
This is what I'm hearing here. If we're talking about budgets, and we're talking about mandatory versus discretionary versus supplemental, right? Mandatory spending would be like, oh, I got to pay rent. I got to pay. I got to pay my credit card bills. I got to pay my car note. I got to pay my insurance. I got to pay my electric. I got to pay my. I got to pay all the bills that are coming in each month that I got to pay. Like if I don't
Yeah,
pay, we got problems.
yeah. I'm not meeting my basic needs.
Yeah. So that's
I'm probably,
mandatory,
yeah.
right?
I'm not gonna die, but I'm gonna have a real bad time.
Yeah. So, but if we take a look at that, that is 4.37 trillion, and we're making 5.23. So we got almost $1 trillion. Sorry about that. We got almost $1 trillion. Right around 800 to nine
Eight hundred
hundred
fifty
billion
billion.
dollars that
It's
we
eight
that
hundred.
we have after all of our mandatory spending. So, what's the percentage of that? Can you give me a real quick
Depends on what.
percentage? So 5.23 minus 4.37. So it's 860 billion. What percentage is that of 5.23 trillion? 860
Uh,
billion.
let's see. 4 point. God damn it. Just do 4.37 divided by, or yeah, divided by the 5.23. That should get it. uh 16.5%.
So okay, yeah. So 16.5%. That's how much money we have left over at the end of the year after we've paid all our bills. So we got 16%. I mean, if it
That is a terrible debt to income ratio.
that is a terrible. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Well, that's yeah. That's not even debt to income. That's just if we're looking at debt to income when you're talking 38 trillion to 5 trillion. I don't know how that looks from a debt to income. But we're talking about money left after all our bills are paid. And if we're looking at it from that standpoint, and I know that from our perspective as normies, as people that don't make hundreds of millions of dollars or billions, when we're looking at this, when your average person is making somewhere in the tens of thousands, meaning from 30 to 90, 30 to $100,000, the tens of thousands of dollars. We don't understand what it is to operate in the realm of hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay? Because even if you're in a six figure, even if you're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're not even in the millions yet. You're not even in the ones. Like your budget or what you're working with in that sense is pennies compared to what they're working with. Your salary is like a penny. Like if you're making $50K a year, your salary to a person that makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year, your $50,000 is literally like them dropping what, 50 cents on the ground?
Yeah, something like that.
Like they lost the two quarters in the couch, and they're going to forget about it, and they're never even going to think about it again. And that's what we have to understand here when we're talking about the amount of money that we're talking about, trillions of dollars. So you're talking that we have that after all our bills are paid, the mandatory spending, we have $860 billion to spend after that, which is only 16%, 16.5% of our income. So if you did, here, let's just do 100K, 100,000 after somebody, and I know that nobody, so we do 100K, and you do what, 30%? Let's just do 30% tax, so 70. So you take home somewhere around 65, 70?
70, yeah.
Okay, so you take 70. What's 16% of 70?
Probably somewhere around 11 or 12.
11K. Okay, 11K divided by 12. That is saying that after your bills are paid, you got $900 left for the month. After your mandatory bills are paid. $900 for the month. 900 divided by 4. That's $225 a week. If you were making $100,000 and all your bills were paid, you would have left over $225 a week to pay for all of your discretionary spending, right? That's things that are not. What is part of discretionary spending? Where's the spending? Is let's see, over half the discretionary towards national defense. So that's all of our defense. Half of discretionary budget towards national defense, and the rest to fund administration of other agencies and programs. These range from transportation, education, housing, social service, as well as science and environmental. So if you just paid your bills, that's all you did was pay your bills. We're not talking about gas for your car. We're not talking about food to eat. We're not talking about going out. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about keeping the lights on and making sure that your bills are paid, the minimums on your bills that you're required to pay. You had $225 left a week. Could you live off $225 without having any other bills to pay a week for everything else?
I mean, assuming I bought food, maybe.
Well, you'd have to buy food with that $225.
Yeah, then
you'd have to pay for
not.
gas in your car for $220 with your $220 with your $900.
Couldn't drive to school. I know that. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking a family like $100,000. You're talking that's a lot of times what a family is making. So what we're saying is our government runs about like the rest of us in the world out here, to where we ain't got enough money. We're not making enough revenue. So it sounds like we need to get some bootstraps going on in our government to make some more money. That's what it sounds like to me. So I don't agree with the 50% of GDP to borrow.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that government spending or government um, what am I trying to say here? That it should be looked at exactly the same as like a person, right? Because at the end of the day, the government just needs.
Oh no,
Um,
I agree. I agree that it shouldn't be looked at as, but it should be budgeted. It should still have a
yeah,
budget.
no,
You have
I
your
and I
in any budget, you got your mandatory spending. Like like if you don't do these things, you're probably going to have a bad day.
yeah,
Like if we don't, and to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure our mandatory spending would go down if we didn't have a $38 trillion deficit
well, yeah, there's that
because
too.
we wouldn't be
Well, yeah,
paying on the interest on those loans.
yeah, because what the interest on those loans, I think, is at prime, right? And so
Well, I mean,
I think,
it doesn't matter. I mean, if you got if you've been spending and your credit card debt is taken up, if you had that, if you had an extra 500, or like if you had 900 for the month, and you're spending 500 to $1,000 on your credit
on the
card,
interest,
on
yeah,
your loans, if you took if you got rid of that, that would give you an extra thousand, 500 to $1,000. So then it'd be 1,400 or 1,900, almost $2,000 a month that you would be able to spend. So I think that's what the one of the problems is our mandatory spending has gotten too high. So that's why I don't know that I agree that the debt can be 50% of the GDP. I think it should be
yeah,
tied more to revenue.
yeah, and I agree with you. I'm kind of wondering if there should be a step further of, okay, well, what's the loan actually for? What's the loan doing?
Well, and
Like,
that's what they have here. If you know, okay, so to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local interest, provided that, except during war and emergency, any increase in annual expenditure in excess of 1% more than the increase in gross domestic product during the preceding year shall require a vote of 3/5 of both houses in Congress. So this is where you're getting, they're limiting the increase of annual expenditure. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law and regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures, all public money shall be published from time to time. Appropriations shall be for a period of 3 years unless otherwise provided. No appropriation of money or provision of other public benefit shall be conditioned on the waiver of any constitutional right except so insofar as achieving the purpose of that benefit. Congress should not condition any appropriation of money to a state except to specify how their funds should be spent, unless such condition is necessary and proper to the carrying out of the enumerated powers of Congress. Here you go. To determine the method of calculating the GDP and to regulate the value of foreign money and to fix the standard of weights and measures. To create a central bank. So Congress has the ability to determine the method for calculating the GDP and to regulate the value of foreign money. They can create the central bank, and then they have a treasury board thing in here. Like they did a lot from that perspective, from trying to get the budget, determining the amount of total expenditures for the upcoming 3-year budget divided in as the House made. So there's a lot in here, and I mean the government budget is a big thing. I mean and the fact that there is nothing in the Constitution now as to budgetary limitations. I mean, it just
yeah,
says what can be done and what can't be done. It doesn't say there's no limit on what the government has the ability to spend because I don't think they ever thought it would get like this.
yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing is they never thought that we were going to, be $38 trillion in debt.
yeah. Well, and I'm wondering if you put a limit on, um, there's no borrowing against day-to-day spending. Like, so you cannot borrow money um, to to pay for budgetary items. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
So that you can't borrow for day-to-day spending. So like for services, for goods, for programs that are already in place, you can't you can't borrow money. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
One more time. I'm sorry.
So when it comes to no when it comes to day-to-day spending, so mandatory spending, and I would say no borrowing for mandatory spending,
Okay.
like and maybe discretionary spending, like if it's if it's known spending, I guess, like because discretionary spending, like we went through this with the shutdown, like SNAP, and like other welfare programs that got shut down and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, well, you you can't you can't borrow money for the electricity. You can't borrow money for your car payment. That kind of stuff. Am I making sense? Because you
To an
knew that.
extent, but I mean, our mandatory receipts are only they're under our revenue, so
Yeah,
you could just say, well, I'm spending all this on this, and I need to borrow the money for this other stuff.
yeah, fair enough.
So I mean, and that's sort of, you know, it doesn't matter how you slice it. You're running a deficit. You're running a deficit. You know, you take, oh well, let's take all the the discretionary spending, take that out first. Well, then yeah, your mandatory spending, but your mandatory always comes out first.
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
trying to find something that shows revenue, federal spending and revenue as a share of the U.S. economy. No, I don't want that. I'm trying to show something that I don't want it as a percentage of GDP. Okay, that shows our revenue, how much money we've collected versus our mandatory spending. Does that
Hmm.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we paid a lot of interest in there. Like our mandatory spending has gone up, our discretionary spending has gone down, which is not that hard to understand.
What time period is that looking over? I can't see.
I mean, I'm trying to find. They're doing in proportions to. Okay, this is defense. I don't care about. Like a lot of this stuff it's doing it over the past 40 years, 40 to 50 years. See this? I don't understand. Like this is not what. Um, I don't even know what this even says. Okay. No, but I'm just trying to understand if you look at our revenue and you look at our no, that doesn't. There it's going to be it's going to be hard to oh this is a chart pack. It's going to be hard to find something probably exactly what I'm looking for because I'm looking for that shows our revenue, how much money we've collected versus our mandatory spending
Hmm.
over the years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I don't care about the discretionary. I don't care about okay, congressional budget office, revenues, outlays. Yeah, that's kind of like I know for the first time in I don't know how many years when Clinton was in office, we had a surplus.
Hmm.
It was the first time, and I don't know how long it was like the year right around the year 2000. We Here we go. Mandatory spending and interest set to, and this is sort of the okay. So let's see if I can. See if I can make this. So this is mandatory spending and interest payments revenues. Okay, so here's the revenues from 64. The orange line is our revenue. We had a big jump in revenue in 2000. Um,
Well, that was the tech boom.
yeah, so those are our revenues. The mandatory spending is the dark purple. The interest that we're paying is the light purple, and then the discretionary spending is the gray. So if we're looking at it here, this is when Clinton was in office. This is 2000, right around 2000. This was one of the last times we had a surplus, to where we were actually spending less than we made, and then we haven't done that. And it's really interesting to see how you had these spikes, right?
Well, it's wild to see 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, 2020, 2021. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that mandatory spending really, and then you had the 2008 right here, 2008 housing crisis.
Yep.
But I still don't understand what 10, 20, 30. I don't know what the percentage has anything to do with. Oh, as percentage of GDP. That's what it is. So this is the percentage of GDP over here on the left. So 10% of GDP, 20% of GDP, which I like how all this is tied to GDP, which I don't, big whoop. But yeah, so in the mid
Well,
70s we had a big jump, looks like. And this is the really interesting thing to me. Okay, so if you look at this in relative to GDP, our income has always been, I'm going to say, somewhere around 17%, anywhere between 17 to 20% of GDP has been the government's income, right? And then if we look starting in, let's see, it went down at the end of, let's see, that was the height of Clinton, and I think that was the end of Clinton. Who was after Clinton? That was Bush, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, Clinton, Bush, and then we had a jump, and I think that was Obama, right?
Yep.
We had a jump for Obama, and then it hit a low revenue low in 2009, and then we didn't do okay. So this was the first years of Obama. This was the second years of last half of Obama, right?
Yep.
And then 20. Wait a second. Where are we? This is 2012. Wait a second. This doesn't. So if this is 2021, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. So that's 2010. If this is 21, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fact that our revenues have gone down. I like the projection, how it's a flat line projection. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think,
Because that's how it's been for the last 100 years.
I mean, if we're looking at this, and I don't think we're ever going to get back to making that amount of revenue. I mean, you're
No,
talking, we had,
there would have to be some kind of substantial change in. I mean, when you look at the tech boom, right? when the internet dropped and
.com bubble.
everybody started trying to figure out, okay, well, what's this thing for? What, how do we use it? How, it would have to be something as life changing or societally changing as that. But who knows when that's ever going to hit again? Because think about it, like uh, 30 years later, and it drives everything in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the lifeblood of our society.
I mean, if you look at it, so this is the 2000. This is 2000 2001 right here. And I don't remember things being so bad back then.
I don't think they were bad for the individual. It was just um, bad for business as a whole, because I think you had all these venture capitalists and all these people that were investing in these companies, thinking that it was just going to continue to grow and grow exponentially, and then like any other bubble, somebody comes along and pops it, and
Yeah.
and that's that.
And then the revenue, I think
Yeah.
this is right
Oh,
around 2003, 2001. I think that's one, two, three, four, five. 4, 5 is one of the lowest until we get over here to, let's see, this is 2010 and 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012. Some of the lowest revenue we've generated versus GDP in a while. But I don't know if our GDP went down at that point. That's why I don't like this stuff. I
yeah,
don't
and it's
like
a
this
percentage, right? It's not
in
it's not a
according to
number.
GDP. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't give some accurate amounts here. But yeah, I'd like to see something not in relation to GDP because everything is they tie everything to GDP for some reason.
Well, from what I'm reading, GDP it it does equal income, right?
Yeah, to an extent.
Yeah,
But it's not. But again, it's one of
it's
those
not an
things that's
equality, a direct equality per se. Like, and one of the other things I was reading is that GDP doesn't subtract money paid out for social services. Um, like as far as government, because one of the things in there was like government income or government spending.
yeah.
Um,
So here
But
you go.
but then
This is
I kind of see why they don't do that too, because then you take those benefits, whether it's Social Security, VA,
yeah,
um, whatever welfare, and then that gets pumped back into the economy, so that's income too.
exactly. Well, this here you go. Here's your spending versus revenues. So from and this is only from 90. So here you're in you got 2000, 2001. There's your surplus in revenue and the spending's down. And then I don't remember when Bush became president. Was that 2004?
2000,
Bush was 2000? Yeah, he
yeah.
was 2000. Yeah. So I remember okay, so yeah, 99 this is Clinton and then Bush took over here and we had more revenues than our spending and then our revenues when 2001 2002 was there tax cuts or something that happened?
Um,
I
well,
don't
you
know.
had 9/11. I don't know if that had something to do with it.
9/11, yeah. 9/11
Um,
our revenues went down. I don't know if it was tax cuts or revenues or whatever, but revenues went down massively. I mean, if we would have stayed on that line, we would have been fine, right? Like
yeah,
if we would have stayed on that line of whatever our current revenue generation was, we would have had a balanced budget for we would have had a surplus for a long time. But
yeah,
instead we had some sort of cuts or something happen. And this is based on trillions. This isn't tied to any GDP or anything like that. So then, it goes our revenues went down and then they started coming back up in 2005 it looks like 2005, 2006, 2008, and then this is where we hit our 2008 was the housing crisis, right?
Yeah, 2008 was the housing crisis.
And then our spending went up and our revenues went down. I still don't understand how our revenues go down. Oh, because people were losing money everywhere, so they weren't making money. They were losing money, so they stopped putting money into the government. And then 2010, and then we kind of got back to a semblance here around 20. What was that, 15? We're kind of getting back there. And then 2016, and it kind of flattened out a little bit. Spending still continued to go up, but our revenue generation kind of flattened out. Let's see, 2018, 2020, and this is COVID, if I'm not mistaken, right? 20,
Yeah.
2020. No, this is 20. This is like February 2020. That's COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, that's COVID.
Yeah, that's COVID. Spending went up, and it's kind of peaked in 2021, and our spending's coming back down, but I don't
Fast
know.
enough.
So the question is do we have that ability? Like if we look at our revenues, if we base it off of revenue, is that going to Yep. So we decreased in corporate tax. There's payroll tax.
So the thing in 2001 I'm reading is Bush signed in a bunch of tax cuts for high earners.
In
Big surprise there.
2001.
Yeah, and then the dot-com bubble burst at the same time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Um,
our individual income tax goes down. Yeah. I mean it makes sense. Tax cuts. So if we wouldn't have signed those in, there's the possibility that we could have stayed our surplus. Imagine that.
yeah, or at least it might have evened out at right around where spending was trending.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or it could have to where we wouldn't have had these huge ups and downs to where we could have been in an okay place for when COVID hit rather than trying to make it up because we rebounded and we were starting to make more money. Let's see.
Well, and
He
I,
so
I
he
think it
signed
just
stuff into 2001 and then what 2005 looks like 2004 2005. Who came in 2004 2005?
that was still Bush.
That was Bush.
Bush was out in 2008, and then it
2008
was Obama 2008 to 2016.
2016. It's very interesting that that our revenues. It's very very interesting. The okay, and then the housing was in 2008. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we're sitting here and we're talking about GDP and all this stuff, and we're not talking about our Constitution,
No.
but I think it's necessary that we talk about this stuff because we have to look at it from the perspective of what type of constraints or guardrails do we need to put, or do there need to be constraints or guardrails, or what do those look like? Like how, if we don't have the information, if we don't know how things are being used or misused or abused or taken advantage of, how do we know what to change, what to put in there?
Well,
I mean, because it's easy to say, oh, well, just increase the taxes on this group of people, or take away, don't spend the $2 billion or $2 trillion you're spending on Social Security. That'll balance the budget, right? Yeah, just take away Social Security. That'll be fine.
right, and then all that money that people are spending to live and to pump back into the economy, all that's gone. What does that do? Like I
Well, I mean, your GDP may go down, but hey, at least you got a balanced budget, right?
Right.
So those are the types of things, and I think both the conservative and the libertarian constitution that we have here, they go about it in different ways. Like the fact that the conservative constitution is trying to limit how much money can be borrowed, trying to say you can't you can only spend on, you know, no appropriation of money or provision of other than public benefit shall be conditioned of the waiver of any constitutional right. Um, like create a central bank with the authority to issue currency and make it legal tender for debts, public, private. So this is one of the things. This was not put in the Constitution, and there was a reason that this was not put in the Constitution.
Oh, there was
There
a huge fight about it.
there was
There was a huge,
vehement people were vehemently against a central bank because they dealt with this in England. Like that was a big thing in England. The central bank essentially owned a majority of things, and if you were either a part of the bank and you were in the in crowd, or you weren't. You had all of
yeah,
the well-to-do people with the bank, and that's how they essentially owned everything. So there was like strong opposition against a central bank.
yeah. And I think, and Jackson did the same thing in his presidency, where he instituted the central bank, and he basically, was giving favors to his friends and
Yep.
his in crowd and all that other stuff. And I don't think I don't think that was a net positive. And then you, because you had Hamilton that was strongly for the central bank and the centralization of power,
Yep.
to that extent.
Eh,
But I, looking at history, I don't like the end result of that. Well, and now you have the Department of Treasury, right? Where it's like
Well, you got the Fed.
a
Yeah.
yeah,
The Federal
um,
Reserve, which is
the Federal
essentially the
Reserve.
central bank.
Yeah, and they print money, and when the government needs more money, they print more. They did it during COVID, and look at where we are 3 years later, and inflation is through the roof, and spending is coming down, but it's still out of control. Um, and I don't know, man. That's
So
a
I think the bigger question here is everything eventually evolves into a central bank.
Yeah, or a
Like
centralization of power.
like you don't like show me a country that's surviving without a quote unquote centralized bank. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be that guy, but I am. Like like you're because they controlling the interest rate for borrowing, controlling like and that's the whole point about it is to it's it's to be able to give something the power to control speculation, to control like to set the standard guidelines across the board of saying, well, this is what we're doing, and it essentially puts the Federal Reserve is essentially in charge, like has a stranglehold on the economy. Whatever they
Yeah,
decide to do is the way the economy goes. They raise the rates, they lower the rates, they raise the rates, they lower the rates. Like, I mean, we were down to 2% mortgage, interest rates, and now we're up to 6 or 7. I mean,
thank you, COVID. I got
I,
my interest rate at like 2.8.
yeah, exactly. But it's one of those things of, do you give a central bank that power? Do you give them, like, I mean, they control the prime rate, the base rate for borrowing, they control it.
Right.
So is that something that a federal bank should there be a federal bank that does that? Should you give power to someone to be able to do it? And then you have to rely on that person to be have civic virtue that is not just going to pull what is it, Venezuela? Like that their
What
money
about
is
Venezuela?
worth absolutely nothing now.
Right.
Like you have to rely on the civic virtue of another person to say, hey, we want to continue this game. We don't want this game to, we don't want to ruin this game for ourselves.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that you say that that it's a game that because it is at the end of the day,
100%.
um, and then you hope that somebody doesn't get in power to where they're going to
Correct.
the game or abuse the rules or find a bug in the game itself to to min max or
Well, I mean, they're
or
already doing that though. That's a thing. It's already happening. We just don't. We're just not part of that group.
yeah.
Like that's the thing.
Speak for yourself.
The average, and that's what the founding father. That's where the people that were opposed to the bank, the central bank, that's what they didn't want. They didn't want to have, because it happened over in England. It was happening in Europe, to where they
Yeah.
didn't want that here. They didn't want that consolidated central power to have control over so much. It didn't happen in the same way. It's not the same thing as over here, but essentially, because if you look back, all of the big bankers and the people that ran the banks over in Europe, when the United States first came on, I mean, that was one of their first things that they wanted to do, was to try to entrench themselves in the U.S. because there was an untold amount of money to be made.
Yeah.
So, and they eventually got it. So,
Yeah. So central bank with guardrails. Do we take the same approach as what we're kind of saying with everything else, where it's like you hope you put the system of selection weeds out um, the type of person that is going to or the group of people that's not going to take advantage of the system.
I mean, you
I,
try to do that. I mean, that's what you try to do in everything, and that's what when we were talking about the different ways of voting. Rather than voting the lesser of two evils, with the star voting,
yeah.
with a different way of voting versus, hey, you get to choose one or the other. You only get to vote for one person out of the two people, so vote for the one that's going to that's against gay marriage. Obviously,
Obviously, yeah.
obviously,
I mean
that's going to be
yeah. I'm
they got the
you
best.
know me. I'm a one issue voter.
Yeah, they're the one that has the best fiscal policies because they're against gay marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what it's turned into. It's like, oh well, they're the I'm going to do it. You ready for it? Well, they're the one that God told me to vote for.
Huh?
Because
And
let me tell you what,
if that's how you live your life, man,
if there's one thing that God cares about, is the fiscal responsibility of the United States government.
absolutely.
I mean, that is on his top list of priorities, of his things that he cares about, within
It
this
is. I talked to him, man. He told me.
microsecond of his life, of this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-being thing over
Okay.
everything. Is like, let's see, fiscal policy in the microsecond of 0.0001 of my lifetime.
So before we alienate, like 30, 40 to 30 to 40
100% of
percent of the
the
people,
populate
uh,
of the
yeah,
viewership.
of the population, like
No, I'm sorry, but
we're
if
being
you're
facetious.
voting on that, if that is your basis of voting, I feel like I want to quote Monty Python here.
I'm ready. Let's
Oh
go.
man, I'm gonna have to do it. Damn it,
Eh, Can't say it and then not do it.
Monty Python. What is it? What is it? Um, Watery tart. Yeah, there you go. Strange women lying in ponds. Strange women lying in ponds distributing sword is no basis for a system of government.
I don't remember that one.
You don't remember the part where the two old
I
woman,
mean,
man?
like once you pulled it up, yeah, I did, but like that part never stood out in my head.
Yeah, no, it's so great. Yeah, I mean, it goes into the whole thing. And how do you get it? By exploiting workers, by hanging on outdated imperialist dogma, which perpetuates the economic and social differences of our society. If there's ever going to be any progress, Dennis, there's some lovely filth down here. I mean, it's but it goes to the part where is it the lady of the lake, her arm, like King Arthur, the lady of the lake, arm clad in the pure shimmering samite, held aloft Excalibur. And then he goes, listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not for some farcical aquatic ceremony. You can't just expect to wield supreme executive power just come watery tart throw your sword at you, I mean, that's...
Oh my god, dude!
You not remember
I
that?
got to go back and watch that movie. That's amazing.
It's hilarious. And then it's come see the violence
It's
inherent in the
so
system.
accurate.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so great. It's such a great scene. Yes, if you haven't watched it, like it's
it's not
fantastic.
years. Oh man,
Yeah,
they don't make movies like that anymore.
no, they don't. But it's one of those things. It's like, oh, okay, so obviously the best way to select your government officials is, well, who did the watery tart throw their sword at?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, come on. But it's one of those things. You're talking about civic virtue and keeping of a civic mind. And I'm not saying that King Arthur wasn't a better quote unquote ruler. He probably cared more about the people than most of the quote unquote
Or
lords or
or
whatever did at
maybe the
that time.
watery tart knew better than all of us. We don't know.
Exactly. So it's one of those things. But anyways, I love how we get off on these little tangents.
I do too. I enjoy them.
Yes,
Hopefully other people do
I doubt it.
as well.
They're
Yeah.
probably like these guys are. This is not entertainment at all. Um, they came here for a very bland and dry conversation about a bunch
Yeah.
of words on a piece of paper that should have been thrown by a watery tart, but was not.
Yeah. Let's stick to the script then. Let's
Okay.
get back to it.
Okay, we'll get back to it. Sorry, I apologize to everyone out there. No, so okay, so if we're talking, I can't believe that we have gotten so far as the second line in Section 8. We are going to be here. I said we're going to be here for a minute.
Yeah. I well like I
The money thing
I
is
said
big.
before.
The money
Yeah.
thing is
But
big.
yeah. Well, because it's the structure of power, right? I mean, talking about the powers of Congress, it's the thing that gives government all of its power at the end of the day. It in my mind, and so it's like if you don't put guardrails on it, and I don't think we have enough at this moment in time, or enough for the world that we live in today versus what it looked like 240 years ago.
Yeah.
So if you don't talk about it and you don't put some of these things in place, like it's if we actually got this off the ground and got it going and got enough people involved in it to where we could actually rewrite this thing, we're doomed to fail if we don't figure this part out.
Well, yeah, because it is essentially your means of power. Your means of power by controlling the money, and that was the when you look at how everything was formed. One of the big things was they didn't want a king. They didn't want one person deciding what money was being spent on. They wanted the people to have that power, and that's why they have the part where all spending bills need to originate in the House. That's where the people have the purse strings.
Yeah.
So so when you're
Yeah.
talking about how they can spend money, you
Well, and it's a huge balancing act too, because you look at the Articles of Confederation and the Continental Congress, and their first idea was like, oh well, we'll just let the states give us money when we need it,
yep,
and then um, and then they got into these different situations. I think Shays Rebellion was one of them, and
yep,
a few other things where it's like, hey, and they went back to the states and they said, hey, we need money, and the states were like, ah, yeah, well, you can go pound sand.
yep.
Um, and and then they're in these awful situations. They have no money to raise an army. They have no way to
They have
to
no
to deal
power.
with this rebellion. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
they have
and
no
yeah,
power whatsoever to do anything.
yeah, and they're like, oh, hey, we might have screwed this up. Like, and it only took them what 10 years to figure that out.
Oh yeah, and that's when you have to look at it is raising kids.
Here we go. You want me to hold your beer?
Hold my beer. Okay, being a former kid myself, you learn very hard truths from saying, "Oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah,
I can do this better." And then you go and do it, and you're like, eh, maybe.
yeah,
I know I don't want whatever that was.
yeah.
And I thought that I could do it better by doing this, by going a little further, by saying, no, 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 no. No, we're just gonna let it ride. And then you're like, sorry. But then you're like, okay, wait a second. Maybe I went too far. Maybe maybe jumping off the roof with the bed sheet as a parachute probably wasn't the best idea. You know? Maybe running up the stairs with the fork in my hand, maybe it wasn't the best idea. There are some things that we learn as we get older that no matter how many times somebody tells us, hey, by the way, I just want to let you know, if you do this, you're going to have a bad day. I mean, I remember climbing trees as young, and you get up there and you get high up in that tree, man, you ain't thinking about, oh, well, when I have to get down, this might be a little harder to get down. No, you get up into that tree and you're like, well, I guess I'm up here for the rest of my life because I ain't getting down. Like, like it happens. So I don't see a fault in what they tried to do. They knew what they didn't want. They didn't want a king. They didn't want to do what England had already put them through. They didn't want that. So they said, okay, well, if we do the states, we're already established the states or whatever. Okay, we'll let the states rule, and it'll be like a bunch of little countries, and then we'll, kind of sort of have something here that, in case we need to fight off, France or Germany or whatever, right? Oh, by the way, yeah, all the states are telling us to go screw because we have no power over the states because that is one thing that they didn't want. Because they're all from the different states, they all wanted the states to have their own freedom, essentially, right? Virginia wanted to be
Yeah.
able to do what Virginia wanted to do and didn't want to hear from Massachusetts saying, hey, by the way, you need to do this. And Virginia saying, yeah, you know where you can go with that. You know, go tell the King of England, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
care. And
Although I think he's a little upset at you right now,
yeah,
but you could try.
but I mean, that was the whole point behind it was each state didn't want the ability of another state telling them what to do. The southern states didn't want the northern states, hey, we have all this land and we're doing what we have with this land. You're up there in Rhode Island. What do who are you? Like, you're nothing compared to us. And it's one of those things to where, and that's what all the arguments, where we came out with the Constitution. They figured, well, we need to have some type of representation, some type of power, a centralized power that has the ability to do the things that we're trying to do that we can't do because we didn't give us any power. So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, next time when I'm climbing the tree, maybe I need to pay attention to where the branches are or how I'm getting up here, so I know when I'm coming down, I kind of know what I got to deal with, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's something you learn as you get older. It's like, unless you have those hold my beer moments, you try to learn from your mistakes, and you try to say, okay, well, we tried this and this didn't work. And I'm not saying that the Constitution is a we tried this and this didn't work, but there's no saying that, oh, well, this is all it's ever going to be and it can't be any better. I don't think that. I think that we need to work towards that. And there's been a lot of governments that have been created, um, and they've tried different things around the world to create something like what we have.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, I'm thinking of the cliche of those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you don't learn from your if you don't learn from your mistakes, like what are you doing here? Like on an individual level and on a grand scale of society, I think it holds true. Um, and I think regardless of what anybody else thinks that this life is all about, I think it's all. I think a big part of it is making mistakes, learning from them, and growing from those mistakes. And I think that's something that we need to inject back into our government and into our society. That like, hey, this isn't working, or it could work better. So let's change some stuff around.
Let's hone. Let's
Yeah.
kind of refine. The quill is getting a little dull. We might need to sharpen the quill, or look at getting a new quill. We need to hone the sword. Whatever
Yeah.
analogy you want to put in there.
I'll throw out a computer science analogy where the one of the big things I'm learning this semester is all about recursive functions, and the idea is that you start with a base case. What do we want to accomplish here? Well, we want to make life better, and we want to make the world better for as many people as possible. That's my
The
thought
overall,
process in that.
yeah,
Yeah. We want to improve happiness. We want to improve contentment. We want to improve people's ability to live their lives as they want within reason.
yep,
Um, and so you stick with that base case, but then you have your recursive step where you have this function that slowly drills down on that and makes you start with a big problem, and then you make it smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to your base case. But it all depends on those recursive functions themselves and um, how they manipulate that situation in order to get to that base case of that happiness.
yeah, definitely. And that's, well, I mean, we do that in IT a lot. You're trying to find the root cause. You do a
Hmm.
root cause analysis. You say, okay, I have this problem. Okay, well, what's actually causing the problem? Like, where is the problem originating from? And then
Yeah,
how do we put guardrails, or how do we eliminate that issue, and then make it easier for across the board for people, as to where this doesn't happen again. And I think that's a big thing. Anytime that I was in IT, is like, okay, yeah, I may have resolved the issue, but how do I make sure this doesn't happen again? Because me
yeah,
personally, I don't like dealing with the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Like, look, two or three times, yeah, but at that third time, I'm sitting there, okay, all right, we need to fundamentally look at what's going on and see how do we fix this. Like, because
yeah,
this is not the way that this should be happening. You shouldn't need intervention all the time.
Yeah.
So how do we fix it to
The
where
time and energy that we're spending to fix this over and over again is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. We need
exactly?
to reassess how we're looking at this.
Yep. And then come up with a solution that is going to allow this to continue without, intervention in some way, shape, or form. So if we look at this from the Constitution perspective, one of the bigger things, and one of the I would say probably one of the biggest things that most people complain about or talk about is money. When it comes to the government, whether it's spending, whether it's all of the waste. I mean, they just had the Doge, Department of
Yeah.
Government Efficiency, that supposedly was going to save all this money, and they just quietly kind of said, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore because it didn't actually save any money. And uh, and I know that I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, you know better than me. When it comes to from the military perspective, like you said, hey, how do we resolve this at the lowest level? But when it comes to from like a spending standpoint, like, don't I'm not talking about contractors. I'm not talking about where all the actual money goes when the defense budget. But when you're talking about, like, in your actual platoons and your actual things, you guys are very from like efficiency. Like, you guys are, for the most part, very efficient. Like, I could be wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but like when you're getting down to it, like, that is essentially what you want your job to be when you're down at the, you know at the infantryman, or the base, like, in the smallest part possible. You want to be as efficient as possible, right?
You do, but there's some caveats to that because there's some things going on there, like where we would hit the fiscal end of year, and it's like, oh hey, we have an extra $10,000 in our
Oh,
budget,
okay.
and yeah, like there's stuff like that, and I was looking at it, especially as I gained rank, where I got more responsibility in that, and it's like, oh hey, I could get the $30,000 fluke, or I could get the $100,000 fluke, and and I get all these cool fucking toys to play with. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
Um, and and, and it's like, and what does that mean on a line item budget? Like, it's not my money. Like,
Yeah.
and I want the cool toys. So
I get it.
there's, yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking from an overall, like, as far as if you look at from an inefficiency perspective and eliminating position. And I know that if you talk to a lot of military members, they're going to be like, well, I mean, leadership obviously needs to go because there's so much BS in leadership. But from a perspective of, like, if someone was to come in and say, hey, we're going to make your unit more efficient, or we're going to make your I'm going to get platoon, or your whatever, your battalion, more efficient. I don't know that there's a lot, like, because there's so much oversight. Maybe I'm wrong, but because there's so much oversight, I don't know that it can get more efficient. There isn't a lot of room for inefficiencies, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not on a day to day. I'm
I know I'm putting you in a tough spot by saying this stuff.
Well, so because now I'm thinking about, I like my last job. I was in Intel, and we had a shop of probably about, like, somewhere between 10 and 20 people. There was about five of us that, on a daily basis, that were going through, getting everything done, getting our work done. Making sure maintenance was good, looking at trouble tickets, making sure the network was, humming along, all that stuff, or working through problems, with whatever we had. There was a lot of there was at least 75% of people in there that were just checking Facebook, like, just biding their time, just sitting there. It and I got I would have to imagine that an army platoon that where you're talking about infantry or artillery or something else like that they're not operating the same way. The Air Force was just a little bit different from my perspective, and being in IT, where it was, to a certain extent, it was run sort of like a business,
Okay.
where um, we saw it in our day to day and incident response. You walk into these corporations and you evaluate process, and then you start evaluating people. Is this person going to be useful to me?
Yep.
Are they going to be a roadblock? How can I utilize this person best? And then you look at it from a holistic perspective, and you start looking at the different groups, the different managers that they have, and you're like, okay, well, that whole team, I could
It's
get rid of
useless.
that whole
Yeah.
team. I could get rid of 75% of your people,
Yep.
like, and you still be humming along. So I'm sure there's still a lot of places, at least in the Air Force, that where where there's a lot of waste in manpower and different things. Not to say that there couldn't be other things done, or that you could get from a reactive state to a proactive state if people were actually pitching in and doing
Yeah.
things that they should be doing, rather than just you know mi- well, I would call it mismanaging their time, or at least wasting resources while they're at work, where their
Yeah.
resources, their time, where they're supposed to be working and they're not. So
I to be
there,
honest, I don't know that you can find too many jobs to where you don't have people like that.
yeah, absolutely. You're always going to have a percentage of that, and depending upon the culture and the way things are pushed down from the top or from the middle, like
Yeah.
you're some places are going to have more than that, and some places are going to have less. But there's always going to be a percentage of waste.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have that with and I'm sure that I don't know if you ever had to deal with it, but I've heard stories of you get cadets that come out of officer school or whatever, and they come in and they're on this group of people that are these guys that have been working together for whatever, and they come in, and it's just like in the real world, you get somebody that comes out of school fresh with their master's degree or their whatever degree that they have, and they come into the workplace, and they have all these great things that they're of how they think things run, and then they just don't have that experience of, okay, this is how things actually run, and these are the reasons why we do it, even though this is the way it's supposed to run. That's just not realistic. Like that's
Yeah.
like a yes, if things were perfect in the world and everything ran the way that they were supposed to run, then this is the way it would be. And I think that that's one way that's how we have to look at this whenever we're doing it. When you hear a lot of these things that we're talking about, you know in a just in this one part here, when we're talking about the ability to collect taxes, to borrow money, and how the money is spent. When you can try to put as much guardrails, you can try to put as much knowledge around that as you possibly can, but if you get somebody in there that just doesn't know how things work, that doesn't understand all of the little idiosyncrasies of what the group is, or how the stuff works, you're always going to have that problem. And I think that that's one of the things that we, from our perspective, especially from the IT perspective, just this one simple line to us, there's too much of a variance in there to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local interests of the United States. And you could try to take this into lawyers to argue this in front of whatever, promoting the national, not local interest. What does that even mean? Like, and you're going to
Right.
have court cases that are going to argue that. What does a national, and you said it, a national interest versus a local interest? And, but again, the question goes, well, if you have somebody that can argue against 400 or 500 or 1,000 or whatever it may be people, and can get them all on the same page and say, yes, this is a national interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what is the check and balance? Because, hey, well, I'm not going to vote on this unless you earmark the $150,000 for my pigeon cage in in my office, in my office back in my state or whatever. I need $150,000 for this pigeon cage, or I'm not going to vote on. Well, that's a local interest. That's not a national interest. Yeah, but it's pigeons. Pigeons are a national interest. Pigeons are all over the United States. And we need this cage because we are doing studies on pigeons and how they, whatever. So I need $150,000 for my pigeon cage. And it's going to have national ramifications across the board because of this study we're doing on pigeons.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and I think it's going to come down to the people that you put in place in power. Like we keep circling back around to that, and the more guardrails too. I think, and the other thing I was thinking about when you said that though is I think you still have to have that room for negotiation, right? Because if you don't, you end up in you have 400 plus people, all with different priorities and different interests for their group of people,
For their constituents.
and and, and how do you get them all to come how do you get them all to come together and agree on something that benefits the good of everyone? You would hope that they would do it out of the civic virtue and stuff like that, but it's almost like you still have to leave that power for negotiation, that power for leverage, um, because I think that's just part of being human. Is the idea that hey, I'm not gonna do this unless I get mine. I don't know how you, unless you breed that out of human society somehow. I don't see how you get away from that.
Well, this goes back to our whole thing of, if you're talking about like representing, okay, all right. So if we talk about how the the federal government should be it should be overarching for country issues. It should be the federal government should be doing stuff that is for the benefit of all the people.
Yeah.
And you're talking about representatives from certain sections of the populace, that that those representatives, in order for them to quote unquote get reelected, need to give something back to the people of their section, right? Their little place, right? But if you take it and you break it down the way that it should be set up, they're represented at a federal level for federal issues to improve the overall general welfare of everyone. But I don't, and this is almost like the money problem that I talked about earlier. It's hard when you have local issues. It's hard for some people to separate them from federal issues. Like a local issue, if there's a problem within your state or your locale, yes, you are represented by your federal representative for a federal issue. But if it is a local issue, it should go. You should start at your local government, whether it's your town council, your city, your mayor, your county commissioner, or whatever, and it should go up from that. It shouldn't start at the federal level and go down. Like there should be, if there is a way for us to separate what a what an what a federal issue is versus a state issue, if that makes sense. When they say the national, not local interests, that is like they're making that specific thing. And again, the conservatives aren't the only one. The the libertarians do it as well. The general welfare should not be construed to refer to the specific welfare of any particular group or individual. So you have conservatives and libertarians that are doing the same thing, saying that this should be a national. That you're talking about a national. The focus of a group that has to worry about the entire several states, as they like to call it, the full country, and the issues that are affecting the full country versus states which look at it more of a local issue. How do you separate that? It's almost and I'm going to pull the money thing back in here. It's almost the difference of between, hey, I go to work, I make this much money, I have this much tax taken out, and I live here in my little thing. I don't care whether or not Utah gets a grant for their roads in Utah. I don't see how bad it is. I know when I drive to work, I got potholes and I got everything else. Why isn't my road being fixed? Like, why do I have all these traffic problems? I have all these crime problems. I have all of these, like, I got these homeless people that are, like those are the issues that I see. So obviously our country is bad, right? But you have people that live in the Midwest on their farm that, their concern right now is, hey, nobody's buying my soybean. Nobody's buying my soybean crop. I'm going to have to discard hundreds of thousands of tons or even hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of soybean crop.
Yeah.
I need to be compensated in some way. It's not my own fault, but the person that was buying it, they're not buying it no more. Okay, well, is that a national issue? Well, I mean, the reason that it's happening now is a national issue, but hey, my corn crop didn't sell this year. Again, we talked about it before, but you're talking. It's the same difference between somebody that has, that they're working off of their monthly budget or whatever it is, that they're making $100,000 a year, so they're bringing in, $5,000 a month. Sorry, $5,000 a month, and they have to budget $5,000 a month. Okay, add 10 zeros to that, and budget that. Like they wouldn't even have it. They wouldn't even have an understanding how much does a banana cost? Like $12 or something. I don't know if you understand that reference, but
Yeah.
but that's one of the things. It's you have, buy fresh foods. Okay, well, to buy fresh foods, I got to drive 45 minutes to an hour to go to a farm stand or to go to a grocery store that has fresh foods, when my other option is to go to the local bodega that's right down the street and to buy, whatever they got on their shelf. Like, I'm not going to, somebody that lives in New York, they're not going to go to the local Walmart or the local Whole Foods to go buy, what they're going to go down to the corner bodega and they're going to get whatever they got on the shelf. They're going to go to the local 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
This is, I know that so a lot of times I'll drive up through central North Carolina, through central Virginia, up through like Lynchburg, and up like through the middle of Virginia, going up to see family up in Maryland. And 29 is not it's not like a back road. 29 is a major road that goes up through the middle of Virginia. And we'll go miles there's no Walmart, there's no Whole Foods, there's no grocery store. You know what they have? Dollar trees. You ever shop
Or
at a
Dollar
Dollar
General.
Tree? Or yeah, sorry, not Dollar Tree, Dollar General. They have a Dollar General.
Yeah.
You ever try grocery shopping at a Dollar General?
Yes, there's one in uh, the next town over that's only about, I think population's like 6,000,
Yeah,
7,000.
yeah. So you know the fresh fruit and the fresh vegetable section that they have
Yeah,
at your local Dollar
that's not
General.
fresh. Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
seen a? Have you seen like if you when you go into Walmart or a grocery store, Food Lion, Martin's, I know, Wegmans, what pick whatever one. They have a whole section with fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, fresh like they have that area. It's like right when you walk in, almost all of the places, right?
yeah.
Okay, go to a Dollar General and show me that. Show me that section in a Dollar General.
Yeah, no, I walked in there like a week or two ago, and like I forget what I was grabbing something because I was over at a friend's house, and uh, and I looked over that, and the first thing I thought, I was like, I would rather starve to death than eat any of that. Like,
But
and I know that's a very first world thing to say, like,
but that's
but
what we're
yeah,
talking about. I mean, and you got farmers that are destroying crops. You have grocery stores that throw away food all the time. And is that a local issue? Is that a national issue? Is that something that needs to be legislated by the federal government? That they need to like what power does the federal government have to come into your local community and do something about that? They don't. They shouldn't. It's not their job. It's you're talking about general welfare. Like it it's about the federal government's job is to protect your freedoms and to promote your general welfare. And I mean outside of that, I mean that's what we put them in power for. I mean if you look at the original Articles of Confederation, there were very few things that they had the ability to do because they knew that they didn't want a king. They didn't want someone that had absolute power. So they went as almost as far as they could in the other direction. And they said, we want all the states to have the freedom to do what they want, essentially little mini countries, right?
yeah,
But we wanted to have that sort of overarching, hey, we all kind of still want to work together. But then they realized, hey, this isn't going to work because then we have no power. So they create this, but you're talking about this is for United States. This is for country issues, and I think
yeah,
that that's where a lot of this gets out of hand because in my personal opinion, gay marriage is not a country issue. That is
I I don't think gay marriage is
issue
a
at
government
all
issue.
whatsoever. No, that is
Yeah,
a personal preference or a religious issue. But the unfortunate part is marriage, because of things like the IRS, because of things like healthcare, because of legal legal purposes, for inheritance or um, power of attorney, things like that. Marriage has become a legal and or a government issue thing, right?
yeah,
So, but in my opinion, if two people want to say that they are the whatever, I don't understand. For them to say, hey, I want this person to have the ability to inherit all of my stuff, to get, to have power of attorney if I get sick, to say what I want done to me whenever, if I'm unable to speak, that is not a, a government shouldn't say who you can or cannot have be that person.
yeah,
Whether or not you want a religious institution to recognize it, it doesn't matter. But for somebody to say, because because you can legally go have a lawyer write up a paper called a power of attorney, and you can sign it, and someone can have power of attorney over you if something happens to you. You can literally do it in law. It's just really complicated. I don't want to say it's complicated. It's a whole thing. You have to write up all these papers. You have to put all of this stuff in it, or you could just go get a marriage certificate and say, "Hey, we're
Yeah,
married," and you get
and
all
it's
of that.
implied.
All of that stuff just automatically gets put into it, right?
Yeah, it's implied as soon as you sign that marriage certificate.
Yep. So I don't understand why the government should have any say what two people are getting married. I can understand if they say, well, you can't be married to more than one person at a time. You can't have, this is our easy way of saying this person has the ability to, you're essentially entering into a quote unquote business contract saying that you are now
Yeah,
partners.
partnership.
That is what that is. Now, if you want to enter into other partnerships, you have to fill out form 365A.1 and you have to put all of these other things down if you want to do that, right?
Hmm.
But there's too much intertwining of the religious part of it and the legal part of it. Because legally you can enter into a partnership with as many people as you want.
Yeah, right.
There's no legal thing that says you can't have a partnership with 30 people. You just got to put up all the legal documents.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is like, and what we keep circling around is the idea that okay, well, we need to hone in on like what are national issues versus what are local, and I like the language. It is vague, but it's vague. I think it's vague for a reason. I
Exactly.
think and because how do you like to sit there and write out every single case, every single idea of what's a national and what's a local issue.
It's going to be
Like,
difficult.
yeah, well, it would take a lifetime, I feel like, and then as society changes, you're having to add things and remove things and change things as you go, and that's just
Well,
the idea of doing that is
I mean
mind.
they have a pretty they have a pretty good list here.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Again, is like okay, hey, let's roll with this. I like the GDP thing. I like the I think that could be refined. Uh, I like I like saying hey, it has to be focused nationally, and then the people and the people's representatives get to argue about it. Because we're assuming I think at this point it's almost like we we need to maybe we stop looking at okay, hey, what's going on currently and all the messed up stuff that's happening today, and we not best case scenario, but like real world scenario. How do we get people in that are going to look at this and not try to completely game it
Yeah.
and do it and make it for their own personal or their own group's self-interest. And I think this does a pretty good job of that. Like between the conservative and the libertarian, in my mind, anyways. Uh, like I said, I think we could add some stuff. I think there's some tweaks, like where we talk about like okay, let's go straight off of income for the debt and different things like that, and or even have some kind of fiscal oversight board where it's like, oh, okay, well, if we take a loan out for this money, um, like if it's not for war or some type of emergency, like is this going to reasonably is this going to make the country better? Is this going to increase prosperity in the country? Maybe something like that. Uh, Trying to think of some other things that I was
So
looking at, and
so
then or the value of the loan um, itself. If you're taking out a loan for consumption, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a litmus test that could be used. Uh,
Well, I think one of the big things is so so what you have currently is Congress makes the laws. They're the ones that put the laws into place. And then it's the job of the executive branch and or the president to execute those laws within those things. So I know that there's talk of the ability of Congress to say, "Hey, no, what you're doing is not what we meant by that." Like that you've gone past the scope of what our allowance was, for them to be able to sort of call back and or veto those types of things, rather than making it easier to do that, rather than having to pass a new law, if that makes sense. Because because the passage of a new law is, I don't want to say it's a lot more difficult, but it is more difficult to pass a new law than it is to say, "Hey, we need to clarify a law that we already passed," or what you're doing is not in the spirit of the law that we already passed. But
yeah.
that is one of the things that they say that that's what the judicial branch is for. The interpretation of the laws that are passed is for the judiciary branch to do, which kind of, for me, is kind of like, okay, wait a second. You're talking about the judicial branch is the one that looks at the laws and says what the laws mean, even though you have the people that wrote the laws over here. Why can't they just clarify what they meant by the law that they passed?
Yeah.
Like I don't understand.
Like,
Like if you want to take, like, within a certain time period, like, but we're talking about things that are hundreds of years old, like the Constitution, or arguing something like that. That's a little bit different. But from that perspective, you should even give the judicial branch, the ability to require clarification from Congress.
well, yeah, they do it with other courts, right? Like where you have the appellate courts and the different federal districts, and the Supreme Court will push a case back down and say, okay, hey, you made this ruling, but you need to clarify this, or you need to, like, you didn't answer this part of the legal question,
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, and to be able to push that back to the legislative branch, I think that's a reasonable inclusion. I think it's a good idea.
I mean, they're the ones that are writing the laws. They should be the ones to explain the laws, right? It
Yeah.
shouldn't be something that's quote unquote open into interpretation. I did want to point out here, because I know we haven't talked about the progressive constitution much, but there is, after the borrow money. If we look at the to borrow money, their next line is to legislate for the general welfare insofar as such action is necessary to address problems that are at a national in scope and are unlikely to be addressed adequately by the state or local governments. So there you have all three, conservative, libertarian, and progressive, saying that the federal government should only address national concerns, not local concerns.
Yeah.
So, and I agree with it. I mean, that's what they're for. The
Yeah.
federal government is to hit those overarching things that one state can't solve themselves, or that are going to better the overall for everyone. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, those things would be things like, whether it be interstate transport, whether it be overarching rules and regulations regarding certain types of business, or what you can or can't do that benefit the entire populace, sort of like, we'll go EPA here,
Yeah.
regulations on what clean water is, regulations on, hey, we found out that asbestos causes cancer. Hey, there should probably be something that says you can't use asbestos. Like, from the perspective, and I also think that the federal government should be involved in research that
Yeah.
involves the forward progress of helping the populace, the general populace.
Yeah.
I think that that is a good thing too, or moving forward the country as a whole. I think that that is also, but
Well, just humanity as a whole, I think
yeah,
too. I think it's such an important part of funding that we don't often talk about.
oh
And
yeah, no,
uh,
research is huge. I mean that, yeah,
yeah,
but
because the breakthroughs that we get from it, and as long as they're not corporatized and monetized like they are now,
correct.
they benefit. They should benefit everyone as a whole. We pay for the research and development. Why shouldn't we all reap the benefits? I think about the way that psychological research has been corporatized and monetized over the last 100 years. The
Oh
way
yeah,
they arrange grocery stores, the algorithms on social media, and it's like, okay, well, we socialized all that research, and then we privatize the profits,
yep,
like, and the benefits of them, and honestly, they've taken it to a point where the benefits are not benefits anymore; they're detriments to societally as a whole. And why we're not doing anything to stop that absolutely infuriates me. Um, but yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax, a whole different situation. I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, but
yeah.
um,
No, well, I mean,
yeah,
and is there a point to where you can say, hey, this particular thing affects enough of the populace that it should now be a federal
that it
thing
should be regulated at a federal
at
level.
a federal level. This for the general welfare, just for an example, and insulin. Should insulin be regulated at a federal level to where it makes it accessible for the populace at large because of the fact that there are so many people that are affected by insulin? You know,
Yeah,
are there things that affect the general welfare of the populace? Is there a threshold that you say, hey, if the populace is, if they're, if you know 70% of the populace or whatever, is there a threshold that says at this point, whenever this is, a medical thing or something that, you know, is, that affects the general welfare? I'm not talking about, oh, well, 90% of people have a cell phone, so cell phones should be, federally regulated. No, 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 no. I'm talking about the general welfare as in something that has life or death consequences on it. Like whether or not somebody has insulin, they could die because they don't have their insulin. Should that be a federally regulated? Should that be something that you can't profit off of? Is there
yeah,
something to where we say, hey, if it is a life or death situation for a certain percentage of the populace, it then becomes a federally mandated or federally regulated thing to where you can no longer profit off of it.
yeah. And on its face, I think the answer is yes. You just have to, you have to. In my head, you have to take that a step further and say, okay, hey, if you can't profit off of this, if you can't pay for the research and development, and get the best possible minds working on how do we make insulin better? Well, what's the cure for insulin? Like how do we flip off the type 2
Diabetes.
diabetes
Yeah.
gene? All of that stuff. And then, but yeah, and then again, that comes to the socialization of the research and development. And do you leave that in the hands of capitalism, and let those cogs turn? And I think if you take away the profits, then you have to socialize
Well, that's the thing.
the entire run.
Well, that would be the thing, as far as you can't make profit off of it, meaning that it is federally mandated or federally regulated to where the point of that there's no bit like, hey, we're not going to sit here and let the populace be a cash cow for you. We're not going to
Yeah,
sit here and let you take advantage of these people that don't have a choice in this.
yeah. Yeah, you're not going to profit off of human suffering. That's what I tell people.
Yeah,
Like that's where I draw the line.
yeah. I mean that I don't think that that's what was it, the polio vaccine
Yeah.
that
What about it though?
the guy, whoever had the polio vaccine, I think it was, is he made it public for like $1 or something because he said nobody should, like, you shouldn't profit off of or something like
I
that. I
remember
can't.
that. Yeah, I remember the story. I just don't know if that
I don't,
was
yeah, I don't know if it
it
was
was that
polio
specific
or
vaccine.
yeah, I don't remember what it was. Or maybe it was insulin. I don't know, but it was one of those things to where, and it's true there. You, if it's a life or death situation, and then we can take that a step further. What about housing,
Yeah. I mean it's all
food?
the same. You know, the
Housing, food.
you know, yeah, and then we go back to dignity rights,
Yeah,
and then like right to
to exist.
fair legal counsel. I mean, the idea that uh, that somebody has that without money has equal legal representation
Yeah,
in the court system today is an absolute farce.
yeah.
Uh,
So
um,
no, but those are the things. Those are the issues that the federal government should, in my opinion, it's their job for the general welfare of the people to promote that for the people. So there's got to be, from that perspective, and being able to write laws and what Congress can write laws about and what they have the power to spend money on should be related in some way, shape, or form to the overall national general welfare. And how do you get that contextually into a document that says that? I mean, if we're, I mean, if it,
well,
because it's a very, I mean, just this right here in the very first part, general welfare of the United States.
yeah. Well, here's a question I just asked myself internally. Is this where we start inserting dignity rights? Do we make the powers of Congress like this is you? Not only do you have the, and maybe it's not necessarily a power, but you also have a responsibility to provide to make sure that these things are provided for.
So in Section 12 of the conservative Constitution is the Bill of Rights.
And like I said, I'm not talking about the Bill of Rights. I'm talking about the okay, whether so it's UBI, it's housing, it's making sure everyone has food, it's making sure
Yeah.
that um, that you have proper legal counsel, healthcare, mental health services. Um,
No, I agree, but you can't put in a constitution that this is going to, like, you're going to be provided health care for all. I mean, how do you how you're
yeah,
like, that is a contextual, like,
it doesn't work.
eh,
I get what you're saying.
yeah, like that's not a something like to promote the
It's not a
general welfare
blueprint.
of
It's
the
not an
populace.
outline.
Yes, that does promote the general welfare of the populace to provide health care for everybody to be able to receive health care. To if they are sick, they should be able to go to a doctor and get be able to get taken care of. Yes, that should be something that you should not have to worry about. Oh, my leg's broken. I'm just going to let it heal because I can't go to the doctor because I don't have insurance, and it's going to cost me $30,000 or $40,000 to get this done. I'm going to be
Right.
in debt for the rest of my life because I was
I
in a
broke
car.
my
Somebody
leg.
hit me. I was in
Yeah.
driving my car. Somebody hit me. I got in a car accident, and now I'm I'm
I mean,
screwed.
I don't care if you fell out of a tree that you shouldn't have been climbing. Like
No, no, I'm just
yeah, situationally, it doesn't matter to me.
yeah, but that's what I'm. But that's the problem is then you go into the whole thing. Okay, well, what does that healthcare look like? What's covered? What's not covered? What's whatever? All of that stuff. And I don't think that maybe there is another article in the Constitution that has to deal with healthcare, or something like that. But
I
you're not getting that
yeah,
in. the Congress one.
Yeah.
But what you have
Yeah, because
is
that's not, and it's not really a power. That's like I said, it's more like a responsibility. But I
correct.
mean, general welfare is a responsibility too.
Well, the interpretation of what general welfare has been
And I
widely
guess that's
interpreted of
kind of what
what
I'm saying
general
is like,
welfare is.
okay, well, is
Yeah.
this the part where we get more specific? And I
I
agree
don't,
with you.
but
It's
I
not
don't
right.
think that this is because I think that you can do stuff like the other ones we're doing, limit spending based on national issues versus local. I don't know if we clarify national versus local. That is that's that part that's tough.
Yeah. And again, I think you have to keep it vague so that, it, because it's all situational, right?
And
And
well,
if you specify, then you
well,
you end up creating exclusions.
exactly. Well, and that's the thing. General welfare, insofar as such action is necessary to address problems that are national in scope. Okay, here you're saying address problems and that are unlikely to be addressed instead of okay. Well, is it a problem? What is a problem? Like, what is
Right.
a national problem?
Yeah.
You
Uh,
know, is
I,
is
that
homelessness a
could
national
change from
problem?
one day to the next.
Yeah, is homelessness a national problem?
I think so.
You can argue with that.
Yeah, but yeah, you could argue it. Well, why can't the states take care of it? Why can't the localities take care of it?
Exactly. Yeah,
I
that's a local problem. It's a local
Yeah,
problem. It's not a national problem. And
yeah, because the farmer out in Iowa, he doesn't have a homeless problem. You know,
exactly.
so
See, and then so you have here. So I want to get the three together here because I want to see the difference in the way that they worded.
do that real quick. I got a pee so
Yeah,
bad.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna pull this. Um, and then I need the conservative one. Um, Here it is. To spend money. Right there. So, okay. So if we're looking at the general welfare shall not be construed to refer to a specific welfare or any particular group of individual. And then this one is legislate for the general welfare insofar as such action is necessary to address problems that are national in scope and are unlikely to be addressed adequately by state or local governments. And then to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local interests of the United States. Those are those are okay. So, let's get the libertarian one. So this is shall have the power to collect taxes. The purpose is limited to paying debts, providing is limited to. We need that is limited to. Wait a second. Where did I miss?
Bro, I don't understand how Rogan does it. Like, does he wear a diaper? Do they hook him up to a colostomy bag? Just got a
For that
Gatorade
long?
bottle under his desk? Like,
How long does his things usually last?
3 hours
3 hours?
is I think the average.
I mean, you just make sure that you go beforehand. I don't know. Does he take
He
bathroom
go,
breaks? I don't know.
yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to get um the purpose to the general. But the okay, so here's the different way it's labeled. Okay, so you have the purpose of such and this is okay. So this is a little different. So the libertarian one has it in the collect taxes. So so the purpose, okay, Congress should have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. The purpose of such measures, so the purpose of collecting taxes is limited to they have the protection, but is limited to the general welfare of the United States. But the general welfare should not be construed to refer to the specific welfare of any particular group or individual. The other one is Congress should have the power to legislate for the general welfare insofar as such action is necessary to address problems that are national in scope and that are unlikely to be addressed adequately by state or local governments. And then the conservative is to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local interests of the United States. So if anything, the progressive constitution is going to be the easiest to argue against because as in they're going to be the easiest to argue that, well, it's not a national problem. So they're going to be the easiest to curb spending because action is necessary to address problems that are national in scope, and so there's two qualifiers, and that are unlikely to be addressed adequately by state or local governments. So not only does the problem, so you have to address a problem, and that it has to be national in scope, but it also has to be unlikely to be addressed adequately. Man, you got so many things here. Okay, whatever adequately means by state or local governments. So the progressive version of this is, man, you would be able to rip all kinds of stuff out. Like this is a lot of qualifiers saying that it not only has to be a problem that is national in scope, but it has to be unlikely that it's going to be addressed adequately by state or local governments. So you have to meet a bunch of bars to get a spending for general welfare in the progressive constitution.
Yeah.
If you look at the libertarian one, general welfare should not be construed to refer to a specific welfare of any particular group or individual. That eliminates so many things.
Right.
Like a ton of spending, because it has to benefit everyone, the general welfare.
Yeah.
So it can't be a particular group or individual. So I think I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a tie for me between which one of these two is harder to get something for. If you look at to argue against something, it can't be to a particular group or individual. Whereas, that eliminates, it can be it doesn't have to be a problem. It has to be the welfare of everyone, but it doesn't have to be a problem. It just has to promote general welfare. And it doesn't matter whether or not it is addressed by the state or local governments. It just has to be a national, it has to be general welfare, not attributed to any particular group or individual. See, but I would argue that you wouldn't be able to spend money for diabetes on this.
Right. And I'm thinking about the bureaucracies that it eliminates. It gets rid of the Department of Education, I think. Maybe. Well, nah.
No, not if you're talking about as a whole, because it's not a particular group. It's all children.
Yeah.
Or all people. It's the general welfare of all the people.
Children are a particular group.
No. All people. It's all people, because education is all people. It's not just a group of people. It's all people.
Yeah, and they do colleges, and anybody can go back to college. And
well, unless you want to say a particular group is uneducated people.
Yeah, well, I believe that is a particular group in our country today. Unfortunately, and I
Unfortunately,
feel like the Department of Education should be doing a better job
of
of
educating.
yeah, and take and and taking people that are left behind and figuring
but
out a way so
but
that
to be honest with you, it would get rid of vouchers.
yeah,
It would get rid of school vouchers. It would have to benefit everyone, so you couldn't target schools that are more needy than other ones. You couldn't target private schools because that's a particular group of people.
true.
You couldn't do public schools. It would have to. You're talking about a
Yeah,
blanket
you can do
everyone.
low income zones.
You can't do low income. Nope. Nope. It would have
Hmm.
to be whatever was done. It would have to be done for everybody across the board. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that they would have to find different ways to do stuff.
Yeah, and it scares me in the sense that you would almost um, nationalize schooling, which
I
may
don't
or may
know.
not be a bad thing.
I don't.
I
I
mean,
don't.
you could still have private schools like that
Yeah,
funded
you
themselves
just
and
the federal government just wouldn't fund private schools. They
yeah,
couldn't give any money to private schools. I mean,
yeah.
but if you go,
But
well, wait a second.
but
No, no, no,
then what
no,
happens to
no, no, no. I'm wrong. I am wrong because you okay. Here is the thing. You can't differentiate between private and public schools. It's just a school
well,
because
yeah.
it's you can't do a specific or particular group. So you couldn't target just public schools.
But yeah,
So
we're getting
anything
into
that
the
you do
weeds
for
here.
public schools, anything you do for it would have to be, and see, and this is where we get into thing almost like a UBI. So you would give schools, all schools, would have access to some sort of money or whatever or resources.
Hmm.
They would all have access to the same resources, and you would have to have the ability. I
And it would
mean,
be the same across the board.
it's not look and this is what I'm saying. It's not a bad thing because you have to look at it differently. You have to provide access to the same stuff for everybody. Okay? So the federal government as a whole can't target certain things. I mean, in my opinion, that should be done at a local level anyways. That should be done at a state level. Like,
Yeah,
why is the federal government saying that a school, this particular school in Utah, is getting more money than a school in Minnesota? The federal government
yeah,
shouldn't. The federal government should not. It shouldn't differentiate. It should provide a general welfare for everybody across the board. It should set the minimum. That is what the government should do. The government should set the baseline for all of the states, all of the communities, all of the thing everywhere. That is what they do. They are supposed to drive everybody forward. They are supposed to bring everybody up.
yeah.
So they would
Agreed.
provide the baseline. So well this would be the thing. If they're providing a baseline, and this is where it can be taken advantage of, it can't be money. They
Yeah,
have
it
to
has to
they
be
have to
goods
be
and
able to
services.
provide resources but not money to everyone. Hey, our Department of Education, the federal government will provide this for, they will provide whatever the latest English books are or the latest social studies or but even then you get into the whole state run media thing. Schools being able to buy their own. But they should provide access to, but you can't say, hey, each school you should have $500 a year per student, and the school should have that much revenue. And if you don't make $500 a year per student, or if you don't have that revenue from local taxes or whatever, then the federal government will make up the difference for the school.
But then the local government just says, "Oh, hey, well, we're not going to provide
Correct.
any monetary value to the
Correct.
schools." So,
Because the
all
federal
right, and the federal
government is going
government's
to
just going
pay
to pick it up.
for up to
Yeah,
$500 per child.
yeah. And again, getting
They
into the weeds of it, but I like this. I
no, but
like when you start talking it out. I think it makes a lot of sense.
and that's where okay, well, and this is the problem that you run into. Well, how do you implement a baseline? How do you make it to where people can't take advantage of the baseline? Just like if we did a UBI, if you got rid of Social Security, if you got rid of Social Security and you created a UBI and everybody got the same amount. Every person is entitled to $1,500 a month.
Hmm.
So every person gets, every person over the age of 18 gets $1,500 a month. Every month from the federal government, you get $1,500.
Yeah. I
Social Security is gone. No more. No more. There's no Social Security tax. It becomes a UBI tax. But I mean, you're still going to have to collect revenue. But Social Security is gone. There isn't waiting till you're 65 to get the money. There isn't any of that stuff. For as long as you live, you get $1,500, and it's obviously you got to be adjusted for inflation and blah, 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 all of that stuff. But everybody across the board, 18 and over, $1,500, and it's just and the number is not real, but essentially everybody would get the same amount. Every person, no matter where you lived in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States, you get $1,500 a month, and it could be 1,200, it could be 2,000, it could be 2,500, whatever the amount is. But you get rid of all of the other social programs. There's no more there's no more SNAP. There's no more um, welfare. There's no more
no more Section 8 housing. No
Section 8
more.
housing. No, there are no more federal programs. No, Social Security's gone as well. You get a UBI. Everybody gets it, and that's what it is. So that would be according to the libertarian constitution. That would be okay because it is general welfare across the board, and it doesn't affect a particular group or individual. Now, because Social Security wouldn't work. Social Security, it is a particular group or individual because it does people over a certain age.
Right.
So, but if you did that, and then you could do kids under the age of 18. They get $500 a month or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm just throwing it out there. But that's you create that flat amount. And then, but if you do that, the only way to be able to have a UBI is if you did Medicaid or Medicare, if you did healthcare for all. You'd have to do healthcare for all. It's a requirement. In order to be able to do a UBI, you have to do healthcare for all. Healthcare has to be provided.
Yep.
But I mean, that would fit. Congress could pass that. That is one of the only things that they would be able to pass in the libertarian constitution, because it has to affect everybody. And then the quote, and then it would also work in the conservative one to spend money for any purpose promoting the national, not local, interest of the United States. So if we're talking from a national perspective, if you're creating a baseline, if you're creating the sort of the floor, that is how the federal government should be. The federal government should be what is helping bring everybody up, and then the local governments can do from the locality. I mean, if we're talking, we need to get I need to get, where's the other 13? Is it 11? 11? Yeah, 11. Let me get this other section in the. I need to get this over onto my conservative.
Yeah, and
So So
I
you
think.
know what's funny? The
Hmm,
the conservative constitution in section 9, they're talking about the emergency, right? The
hmm.
emergency state. And I know that this is a thing that has come up quite a bit recently. In theirs, they say the president can request the emergency. But let's see, any state of emergency shall last no longer than 6 months without a renewed request by the president containing a statement of the reasons for continuation and reapproval by three-fifths of each house. Congress may by law provide for the suspension of other legislation during the pendency of a state of emergency. Upon termination of the state of emergency, it shall be the duty of Congress to return to constitutionally authorized level of spending and borrowing as quickly as may be practical. The existence of a declared emergency shall not be construed to vest in president any powers other than those specified in this paragraph.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting thing. But
Yeah, and I think I I think you're on the right track here as far as the UBI and stuff like that. And then it really in my mind it kind of where you take because you're taking power away from the federal government by saying, hey, you cannot allocate money for this. You cannot allocate spending for this. And then by implication you're saying, well, if you can't allocate money for any of this stuff, you don't need to generate as much revenue. And if you don't need to generate as much revenue, then all that goes back eventually to the people, and it gives them like that power back. Now the states and the localities can do their own taxes and create their own programs and other stuff like that, and then it is almost handled at a and you push the power back down to the lower levels, hopefully where problems can be better solved. And like you said, where we're only solving problems at a national level. And I think that's the biggest thing that we've been dancing around, like, and not necessarily on the stream itself, but that we've been talking about is where what is the federal government's job? And it's
yeah,
like, okay, well, you've got foreign policy, you've got war, you've got post office, roads, and education, maybe, the EPA, Federal Communications Commission, stuff like that. And then, but after that, it's like no, you don't get to allocate money, you don't get to allocate spending, and at the end of the day, you don't get to uh, you don't get to hold all that power. We send that back, send that back to the states, send that back to the counties, the towns, and and hopefully the people.
yeah, I will. And I mean, obviously, there's going to be okay. Well, how do you do that? Um, how do you send stuff back down to the states? How does that work? And or when does that get sent back to the states?
Yeah.
I think that I think from that perspective, when you're talking about, I mean, look, when you're talking about the powers of Congress, when they set this stuff out, they all had their list of things that they thought were important at that time.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that list
Es-
is completely different today than it.
well, establish post offices and post roads. I mean, that was a big deal. That was a huge deal.
Well, it was how they communicated. I
Exactly.
mean, so yeah,
But
it,
we don't have any
it's the
regulation over
number
the
one
internet.
deal in my mind.
We don't have a
Like,
regulation over the internet right now because
right.
Congress doesn't have the power to establish internet law. like there's nothing in the Constitution that says that Congress has the power to establish infrastructure, digital infrastructure.
Yeah, the medium of transport.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's all that they should have any type of power or regulation over. I don't know that they should necessarily, because it's like the post office. All they do is they collect and deliver the mail. That's it.
Yeah,
They don't. It doesn't matter what's in it.
correct. They just move it,
Yeah,
move it from one place to another.
yeah.
And I
But
mean,
they,
is there going to be a point? And this is what I was saying earlier. If there is something, I don't think the internet constitutes a life or death, but something that is integral. Like if we're talking about doing elections and doing them digitally, then it should be the federal government's job to make sure that everybody has access to it, right?
yeah.
Like if
They need access to the medium, yeah, if they're going to participate. Well, and also participate in the discourse as well, right? Because if you look at the way that elections are won and the way that information is transferred, it's done through the internet. So why so giving everyone access to that information is critical. Just like post roads and post offices.
correct,
You know,
it was
if I can't get my
essential.
letter, I don't know what's going on in New York. You know, if I live in South Carolina.
Yeah, we have to establish a way for people to communicate.
Yeah.
And it has to be, and I mean that was a big deal. Like you're talking about, you don't want a postal inspector up your, you don't, you don't mess with the postal inspectors, like because they're federal agents that essentially they run roughshod over anything that has to do with the postal service.
Yeah.
I,
No,
I'm,
they did an episode about that on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was pretty funny.
oh yeah,
Ed Helms was the postal inspector.
postal inspector, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember it. It's good, but I mean, those are the types of things that you know in this Constitution. Like when you get a room full of these people, it's like, hey, we need to make sure we can talk to people. We need to make sure we can communicate between the states. We need to make sure that we have a secure way to make sure stuff gets done. That the government that the states don't have the ability to say no. We're not transferring your letter. Your letter that's coming from Virginia wants to send a letter to Pennsylvania and Maryland says, yeah, screw you. We're not letting you can't get through.
Or in this day and age, we want to make sure that the information that or the communication that you sent is not being manipulated in some way.
Exactly. Well, I mean that's mail fraud. Like I'm pretty sure if you
Well, yeah, I mean, same
that,
idea. Somebody opens your letter and puts something completely different in it. You know,
major problems. So I mean,
Yeah.
those are the types of things like that they were thinking about back then that we need to think about today. I mean, money being the big one, obviously. You know, I don't know. Are we done with money? Have we finished with money?
I think I'm good for now. Like
Okay.
I like as long as you are, I'm. It's so much to wrap your brain around. Like and like I said, I'm all for the idea of keeping it vague, and I like the idea of reducing the national imprint as far as like okay, here's what you can spend money on. I like that. And then once you limit what they can spend money on, you limit their power. And then you have everyone looking at it and being like, okay, well, why do you need all this tax revenue when you can't spend that money anyways?
Yeah. I mean, well, the whole thing is national. Each one of these constitutions, and see, I don't think that they thought at that point when they made this that the money was going to be spent for anything other than, because
Right.
at that point, like the federal government, like they didn't want to give money to the federal government anyways. Like they didn't know that they were going to have that it was going to that the consolidation of that power from the government perspective was going to take off like it did. That they were going to be spending money on all of these things that we spend money on now.
Yeah.
All right. So and we're going to have to look at maybe we'll do this in they're 9 and 10. Like you're talking about creating a Department of Treasury. Where is it here? Congress should establish a board of Treasury with one member appointed by the House, one member to the Senate, and one member appointed by the members appointed by the House and the Senate. So 3 people. So wait a second. One member appointed by a House, one member appointed by Senate, and one member appointed by the members appointed by the House and the Senate. Nice. Such board shall have authority to judge whether expenditures proposed by the executive department comply with the appropriations laws enacted by Congress, and shall prepare and provide at Congress at the beginning of each session an accurate estimate of the receipts from taxes and all other sources expected under then existing law. Yeah, so budget resolution, 3-year budgets, extended to, but the thing is, in the conservative constitution, we haven't gotten there yet, but they actually extended the presidential term to 6 years, but only one term. You cannot be reelected, period. You get one term, 6 years, and you're done.
That's something to think about.
Well, I mean, that goes along with the things that we were trying to do with, the off years with the House.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is no subsequent increase in appropriations shall be enacted without a corresponding increase in revenue. There you go. Trying to do the balanced budget.
Yeah.
I do not like this line that they have in here. This line basically, this says if Congress fails to enact legislation raising revenue or borrowing money in amount sufficient to cover any excess appropriations, the president shall have the duty to exercise a line item veto to bring appropriations down. I don't know if I like the president.
Well, yeah, because then you open up the door for where groups are going to get excluded.
Well, not only that, you're talking about, okay, line item, Social Security gone.
Yeah. UBI gone.
Yeah, I mean, you have the ability to veto anything, so I don't think that. Okay, so let's get to the fun part here. Commerce. This is the next one. So we have the money of the first, and the next one is to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states with the Indian tribes. We're already sitting at 3 hours. Do you want to try to do this, or do you want to call it?
Let's call it, and we'll do commerce next time.
Yeah, we'll do commerce. Yeah, I figured that would be a good one, because we have a total only 5 hours on money. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's nothing. Yeah. I mean, we could spend weeks on this.
Not boring at all either.
No, so much fun. We covered watery tarts.
Yeah. Bro, I'm probably gonna watch that movie tonight.
You should. It's such a great movie. So good. So good. So good. But yeah, no, it's it's tough. We're talking about these things. You hit on some of these items and the discourse surrounding it. Like, how do you handle this stuff? Like, and I mean, you look at the conservative constitution here. I'm going to switch back over. The conservative constitution created three new articles about money and spending money. The libertarian one, I think it was two new sections, or one, at least one. Section 11. So I mean, there's I don't think that the progressive didn't do anything. I mean, that's a lot. Like you're talking about adding a lot of stuff in there for
and rightfully money. So, because I think money, at least today and over at least the last 150 years, is the heart of where government. Most of our problems and our
without a doubt, it really is.
It's where it lies. Yeah, it's where. It's what everybody fights about. It's what divides us.
It really does, quite a bit. So I think that, hopefully we brought up some points that, when we go back and we revise all of this stuff and get the actual wording down and thinking back and forth between all this stuff, I think that we'll be able to better, I don't know, facilitate how we want or how we feel that the money should be spent, or how it should be done, or the wording that we're going to use to limit that capability. So
Yeah.
I think that we covered quite a bit of ground, and we learned some stuff today. Learned some, and we'll keep doing that every day. I don't think that that's going to change. So,
I might.
But you got anything you want to leave off with, Josh?
No, I think love to hear from more people. I try to discuss this with as many people as I possibly can, or people willing to listen.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, but most people are so ingrained in their own personal struggles. It's hard for them to put any kind of perspective on this. Is what I'm figuring out. It's unfortunate, but I understand it.
And that's a big part of it. I mean, and that's why I wanted to do this in the first place. We had a lot of offline conversations, and we talk about this, and it's one of those things of how do we bring that to the bigger audience? How do we get more conversations around it? Talk to people that might have ideas that we don't.
Yeah. Or just interested in the conversation.
Exactly.
Interested in the iteration of the ideas.
Yep, definitely. So, all right, Josh. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah.
I think,
commerce, man. It's exciting stuff.
I think we're what do we got? The 7th of December.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh man, it's almost Christmas time. We're getting there. Hey, did you get your Christmas shopping done yet?
No.
Oh.
I don't have any friends, so I don't have anybody to shop for. So
terrible. Hey, you got to shop for your dog. Come on now. Can't believe you.
Yeah.
I can't believe that you
maybe
just
I'll
said.
get him a couple of toys. Maybe
I
I'll get him a chew.
I can't believe you said he's not your friend. That's terrible.
Yeah. It's awful.
Just don't let him hear that. Anyways.
I think he's sleeping.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will see you next week, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.
Yeah. Stay safe. Make good choices.
Make good choices.
Look forward to hearing from everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.